What's your favorite scary movie?
This is Halloween Town.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Beetlejuice.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
Is this discipline or torture?
Thought it was meatloaf.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast, where today we are covering the Amityville Horror from 2005, in parentheses. With me today we have...
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, the Geeky Writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And hey, if you're listening from the Amityville house itself, High Hopes or something, you can find Cheap Seat Critics podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LetterBoxd. We also have a visual medium of YouTube and or Rumble, depending. Hey, you could watch it on both at the same time. Crazy thought. If you prefer the visual sides of things.
Well put. As stated, we're doing Amityville Horror because we're doing our Halloween season. Very exciting. And we'll jump right into our histories, starting with Ryder.
All right. So, as far as my history with this particular film, is close to none. I hadn't seen the films before. There is a original film, I think, that was made in the 70s or 80s that we did not watch, but we watched the early 2000s one. But obviously, I'm familiar with in part familiar with the main story that this is supposed to be based on. It was a very, very famous series of murders that took place.
All right. And you haven't seen the 70s, well, 1979 is the one you were talking about. Have you seen that one?
I have not, no.
Okay. Sprinks?
I know about the movie, and I know about the thing that's based, like, the actual story of real-world events. Never seen this film. I knew it was on just a part of Ryan Reynolds' filmography. And I want to say, like, I don't think they're related, but was, like, Josh Brolin's dad connected, or someone Brolin or something, to a previous Amityville?
Yeah, the 1979 one was played by Abe Brolin, who played George. I don't remember the full name, but it was a Brolin, yeah.
Could or could not be related.
Yeah.
James.
Brolin is last name. All right. Was that it, Sprinks?
Yes.
All right. Jumping to my history, this would be the third time I believe I've seen this movie. I think I was maybe 13 or so, early teens when I first saw this. Then I saw it last year, and then I saw it once for the pod. I've not. Yes, 3 times that I can recall. And I've seen a documentary on it. I've seen bits and bobs of the 1979 one, and I've seen Amityville 3D, which was the last Amityville movie before this one came out, which was in 1983, 80 something. Wasn't 87, 86, I think. And that one very different from what we saw today, or covering today.
No wonder you're hosting. Sounds like you're a big fan.
I haven't even seen the original. I don't know if I'd say I'm a fan. That about it? I think that's about it on my history. So we'll jump into the facts section, which there are a few interesting facts with this film.
Actually, before we jump into facts, I wanted to nudge Sprinks really quickly. You wanted to talk about the Halloween theme here for why it's going for a while, or why it's a month-long thing.
Oh, I believe so. Man, that was talk that was not recent.
I know. That's why I'm reminding you. Sorry.
Hey, everyone. As you can see, we're doing a Halloween thing, but it's not like our previous years where it's like 2 picks closer to Halloween. We're doing a whole month, all of October, of spooky picks, and it's all month long. So it's one big 5-part Halloween special.
If you
No,
didn't get the
really.
hint in the previous week, it is here now for sure.
Yes. Oops.
No worries.
All right. X. I'll start with what I usually do, being the budget. I saw two different numbers, but I'm going with the one that was more prevalent, which was 19 million. The other one was 18 million, so very close anyways. $19 million budget and a box office of 65.2 million. I rounded it. So pretty good profit overall for it. And at this point, Ryan Reynolds wasn't like a huge household name yet. He was known, but not big. Just before they started shooting, there was a body of a fisherman who was murdered that washed up on the shore next to the house that the location that they were filming.
Great omen.
Yeah. Very great timing on that one. Very peculiar. I couldn't find more on it other than it was apparently a murder. It wasn't just a fisherman that died in the water. It was apparently a murder. So, interesting on that. This was Chloe Moretz' debut in a film.
I believe it.
She's quite small here. And she also performed most of her stunts. I couldn't find specifically anything in regard to that other than she did most of her stunts.
That makes sense.
Ryan Reynolds chose to be distant with the child actors, so he wouldn't really build a bond with them, so it'd be easier to berate and abuse them for the scenes when he's being George.
Nice.
Well, when he's
It
being
was
evil George.
so
anyway.
exaggerated that the kids told people or asked people, does Ryan not like us? That's how distant he was with them. So that's some dedication there. And I guess the last one I'll go with, because a lot of the based on true stuff I'll probably bring up during the coverage if people ask and if it's relevant. Kiss was not originally the poster, but once they had the actress hired for Lisa, they found out she had a long tongue, and they just connected the dots with Gene Simmons and just made Kiss the whole thing because of the actress. So,
All right.
I couldn't find
What?
what the original band was, but yeah.
What? That weird.
Yeah. Nice little
Does she
change,
even
I guess.
display it in the movie?
Well, yeah, she's licking her lips with her tongue and stuff, and then they talk about the Kiss poster, so they do show it.
Odd.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Peculiar.
Very, very odd. I agree.
All right. Anything else before we jump into our coverage? Secret facts from the two people that didn't know much about this?
It's not so much a fact, but well, kind of. It's a history fact-ish. Where this movie lines up with Ryan Reynolds' acting career.
Okay.
Of this movie, in the span of 2005, he did 3 films. Amityville Horror was the second one. Before this, he did a movie called School of Life, which was a made-for-TV film, which I have seen. And then afterwards, he made a movie called Waiting, which I also have seen. This, I guess, lines up with that acting of his. And then a couple works shortly after this film were, or more popularized after this, was Just Friends and Definitely Maybe. And prior were such things as Blade Trinity and Van Wilder.
More well-known ones of his, yeah.
Okay, you're the expert with Ryan Reynolds' filmography, Springs. Am I thinking of the right actor? Because I'm thinking was it he who did Total Recall?
Ryan Reynolds? No.
Okay. The actor just looks a lot like him. Okay. I don't know why I think he's in Total Recall, but my brain went there for some reason. Anyway, that's all.
All right. Well, I guess on the topic of Ryan Reynolds, Spranks, how does this performance rank with his performances? Because you've seen a lot of them.
Out of all of them?
Yeah.
Easily bottom half.
Easily bottom half. And is that with enjoyment level or quality of his performance?
I think quality.
Oh.
Then again, many would say that Ryan Reynolds kind of is just Ryan Reynolds in every movie. Just this sarcastic, funny dude.
Mm-hmm.
But this is certainly different of him. There are aspects of him in this movie that are like that, but I don't know. Him just falling over in pain wasn't exactly like Oscar worthy in my eyes.
Interesting. All right. Well, I'm the opposite. I think this is his best performance in this movie. Oh, very interesting. I guess writer.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm actually this is gonna be lame. I'm in the middle. I can think of there's stuff here that I think he's. Well, I guess what interested me most about knowing Ryan Reynolds was in this role is that he's not playing that. He's not playing himself, the sarcastic, witty caricature of himself that he usually is in most of the films. So that for me was, I guess, a big draw to kind of see what he does under, with a different character that he's supposed to play. So there are scenes here where I think he does an amazing performance, and there are scenes here where I think he hasn't quite got his acting chops yet fully developed. So it's definitely felt like a middle of the road for me. I definitely didn't, him collapsing on the bridge, as you put it, or the walkway in pain. I didn't see it as Oscar worthy, but I also didn't see it as horrible. I just saw it as actors still developing,
Okay. With that, we shall jump into the coverage, even though we kind of just started with it a little bit. We are going with a 3-act popcorn structure. Act 1 starting from the beginning to the day 15 title card. So we're not jumping past that. Anywhere in there, so much to talk about. Sprinksa here has a lot to talk about in this act. So we'll start with you first.
Oh boy. I believe this is the second, quote unquote, second horror film I have seen made by Dimension Studios or Dimension Films. First being The Others.
Christ. I was not expecting to see the Dimensions logo when I started this.
No. For me, growing up, I'm most known of their works of Spy Kids.
Yeah.
So seeing them strapped onto anything else is always a little shock.
Especially something serious. Very, very peculiar.
This looks like it had a budget.
It did. It had a $19 million. I don't know how much Spy Kids was. That would be an interesting one. Budget.
Which one?
Well, I'm sure each one got more and more budget, so I would go with the first one. Writer.
All right. I will start with I guess the first family interaction. I just want to get out of the way. I think that's probably the ugliest looking scrambled eggs I've ever seen in my life.
Agreed.
And
I thought it was a bad omelet.
And obviously the kids don't like it, but I almost think it was cartoonishly bad.
Interesting.
Yeah. It works.
I didn't take anything away from it, really.
Yeah, it was cartoonishly bad, but it wasn't terrible.
I think it does a good job establishing the dynamics, the whole house scene, the bedroom and the kitchen for breakfast. Good job establishing stuff.
It wouldn't look so bad if when he put it on the kids' plates, it didn't turn into just normal looking scrambled eggs. It was actually like one whole clump of like half the pan. I think that would have fit more, but it makes it stand out more because of that.
I really don't remember what the scrambled eggs look like.
It looked bad.
It looked like a one-note creme brulee.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. But obviously that's not the main takeaway of the scene. I just wanted that was funny to point out. I actually I think I quite like the the dynamic they actually build here with the family for this. Because you get the immediate sense that the kids and George are kind of, they don't see eye to eye quite yet. They're still getting used to him, so he's still trying to just kind of be a good. He's not necessarily trying to be a father figure
Replacement.
to them yet, but he's still trying to there's a lot of setup here, I think, for a groundwork being laid about their relationships and the family dynamics and how he's the new patriarch, but he's not necessarily fully accepted by the whole family outside of Kathy. Particularly the eldest.
Trying to find his place.
Yeah, he's still trying to find his place, and he takes most of the wisecracks sent his way fairly well. As when they talk about how terrible his breakfast cooking skills are, he even agrees.
Yeah, he offered to give him food on the drive to school, but he wanted to walk instead because he doesn't like Michael.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like George, or Michael doesn't like George.
Or George, sorry. I
Michael, George, William, Billy, same diff.
I will say the names of the parents are correct to the real story. The kids' names are all bogus. The priest's name is also different from the true story. So,
all right, that's
that
fair.
out there. Not that it really makes a difference with anything.
Interesting. So it's like vampires suck. Where two character names are right and everything else is made up.
Well, so there was the true event, and then there was the Amityville book, which was made based off the events, where the author did interviews and stuff to get the full story. And for legal reasons, they had to change the name of the kids for the safety or whatever. So each iteration has had the kids just be differently named, but the parents were historically accurate.
Cool.
Priest, I don't know why that.
Take it as a yes.
What's a yes?
That it's like vampires suck. So with my example.
Oh, well, I mean, we don't know why the names are different. Sure, yes, there are names that are different. I'll jump to something I don't like, which is, well, broad terms Jody, but a specific instance of Jody being her hanging from the ceiling with a noose.
Oh, during the sex scene? Yeah.
Oh, whoopee.
Yeah. I have no idea what that is. She didn't die from hanging. There's no story connected to hanging. Even the Indians stuff at the end, there was no hanging with them other than like the hooks, but that's a different kind. It just seems so random and out there, and I don't know. That's the only time that George sees her, and I don't know what that was.
It's like a Beetlejuice
No,
moment.
it's not the only time George sees her, but it's the first time George sees her.
Oh, that's right. He sees her in the window.
Mhm.
That's right. How about that?
But it's weird because I mean the what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to support the kind of little bit of growing distance between George and Kathy because they no longer have a sex life they can enjoy now, for the time being anyway. But it's weird because I don't even think Jodie has any reason to do that with what little we get of her character. Even if she has the ability to hang herself, which is already weird, but
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't understand it. She has nothing to do with anything. The news. He could have just like been next to him in the bed and he turned his head and saw her and boom, jump scare or something. Like
I think
isn't backed by anything.
And see, the thing is that why can like he see Jodie? He's not possessed yet, and the same would go for Kathy because Kathy never really sees Jodie, I think, but Kathy sees a lot of, I guess, the pranks
like
that Jodie
shadows.
does. Yeah,
like her running or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no direct visual.
There's no consistency, I guess, with the visuals, I guess, with regards to it.
Crimson, does this line up to a real event of time-wise of what happened? And that's why it's there?
Like George being scared by a ghost in the bedroom? That specifically?
On the night 1 at 3:15 a.m. Yeah.
No, that does not tie up with anything. Well,
Okay.
3:15 is important, but it has nothing to do with this Jody thing.
Okay, so this is a depiction of a scenario and not actually the events of what occurred and, being based on.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest changes with this version of the story is Jody. In the book and in the true story, Jody was depicted as a demonic pig,
Interesting.
not
should
a
have had
little
that.
girl. Yeah. So, I mean, that's in the 1979 version, the pig person. But in this, Jody's just a little girl
Who was a
doing
victim
stuff.
of what happened? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Being that it's not, more to the one of what occurred, I think it just needed to be placed and edited in a different spot in the movie. Because my
And-
problem with it is that it occurred night 1.
I'm fine with it happening night 1 because stuff even happened when the realtor was there showing the house. You see the shadow of Jody and the sounds. So I don't really think it needs a build up to have the ghost presence. I think the build up for the possession stuff, which happens or whatever happens to George.
Okay, so we're seeing things differently. You're on the ghost presence. I'm on George being affected.
Well, we don't know if this is George really being affected seeing her.
Okay, I disagree. I think it's entirely directed at George, and that's why Kathy's not affected.
Well, I mean, Chelsea also sees Jody, so I don't see why that's specifically
That's later.
George thing.
I don't think there's any basis so far shown of Jody finding George to be a bad father or a bad dad figure, which is explained to Chelsea. Which is why I think it would strengthen if it was edited differently at a different place of Jody trying to scare George.
I mean, it just comes down to what is Jody as a character. I don't really know what her motives are with the family. She wants to be friends with Chelsea. She tries to convince Chelsea to end herself, to be close forever. But I don't know if her goal is to scare the family out of the house, because she's not doing a very good job if that is her primary objective. I don't really know what she's doing.
Okay,
Man,
so try to get more understanding of this. This is on the character development of Jody in your eyes of what you're seeing versus the structure of the film to display the story, which is what I'm seeing.
Well, no, because a character's actions can dictate the progression of the story or the structure. Why would she do this now instead of later? That's a character thing, and so it is important for that. If that makes sense.
Trying to wrap my head around it. Yes. Sorry, I'm looking at like 3 different angles, and it's a little confusing for me. Yes.
Well, her objective, whether it's to scare the family, I don't know. And what's even stranger is that she seems to be a free agent. She doesn't seem to be connected to the Reverend or anything. Like, she's not controlled by him or something. So I don't
know.
No.
But that brings up other questions.
Yeah, which I'm sure we'll get to for those.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues I have with Jody because I'm just listening to you guys talk, and I think it's one of the more confusing aspects of the film because there's a lot of things Jody does that would be in line with like the house itself or quote unquote the Reverend, not necessarily connected directly to the Reverend, but indirectly connected due to the previous murders to the Reverend. but she's also seems to have a lot of degree of independent agency that I don't understand Jodie's, like, what her goal is outside of maybe wanting a friend in Chelsea. You brought up her saying, or her thinking that George is a bad father. I would disagree with the take that he's a bad father, for at least when he's not being possessed, because he's actually fairly good father when he's not possessed. I think a good father.
And that
figure.
lines in why I'm seeing three different angles.
Yeah, describe your angles. I'm curious.
So, like, there's the what's the story being made and shown of the film. There's what would strengthen it to be better in the outlook, and then kind of with what you just said, George is being the best he can try to be, but there's nothing proven to the point of Jodie understanding something that hasn't occurred yet. Which, right, to me is a editing scenario because it doesn't line up with the actual story of events that happened based on the big thing, not a, which I don't know why that really stuck with me, but based on the true story of what this is. To me, it's a film situation of editing where it would have been stronger to me if Jodie's introduction was Chelsea saying she made an imaginary friend as a ghost presence, getting a little more of the mystery and confusion to an audience perspective, than this jump scare scenario with George when he's done nothing against her in this aspect.
That I agree with your take. That ties into a lot of what I think a lot of my more base foundational issues are with the pacing of this film. But I will say, at least right now, with what I can talk about, I'm in agreement because I think what they should have done in order to make Jodie more consistent, because she's inconsistent as far as I understand her character to be taken away from the film, is I think we can remove her dropping down and hanging part, because not only that would negate the confusion of it, but she doesn't start like properly going after George or trying to scare George until George starts to get elements of possession, because at that point he's starting to turn into a bad father or a bad dad. It also would allow her to maintain her agency. Right now we don't have anything connecting those in with regards to the film, because those are that's kind of what muddles her character for me, in the sense of she's scaring George without really having any reason to, and the film continues to portray her with the sense of independence or agency.
I just think it would strengthen the movie more if this scene was placed to depict like night 8 or 9 or something, and the sex scene wasn't just for like the celebration of getting the house and everything together, but more of like Kathy seeing slight changes in George as like a rekindling that they're still a couple. And I think that would be better in that instance, and especially when George like calls her off saying, I don't feel good, because night 1 seems like just a very fast jump. And if there was, I think there's more strength to what it could be later. I'm on the side where I don't want it removed. I just want it moved.
Yeah, I would rather it be moved or removed. I'm down for either in order to help the pacing of the film. And it would help at least deal in part with Crimson's issue with that it's just a badly placed scene.
It's very Beetlejuicy. Like when they're trying to scare the Dietzes out of their house, then they're just showing up.
Okay, that's what you were talking about with Beetlejuice. I watched the movie thinking that ahead because you brought it up to me. I had no idea what scene you were thinking for that. Okay.
No, I had that when she's on the ceiling and George enters the closet, never sees her, and walks out.
Yeah. Man, I have thoughts about that scene. Is that still in this act?
Yes.
Oh.
It's the tail end of this act. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Then I'm going to jump right to it, if you don't mind, Crimson.
I have one more piece on the hanging bit before we move on with that. I would rather remove it than move it, because I don't think it really adds anything. Well, I would remove it or change something later in the film to give her motive to scare them out of the house, because I don't think there's enough in this whole movie for us to know that's her goal, is to scare them out of the house.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's the motive that they want to give us. Like I said, I don't really know because her character is inconsistent with that.
Yeah,
I think
so
it would be
without
far
them-
creepier if it was a slow burn and she was just staring like through the crack in the door, and we see that through the reflection of the mirror behind the headboard, and George is just staring at her, and I think that would be creepier than a jump
from
scare
a movie
tactic.
sense, but I'm going for character of Jodie and why she would try to scare them. She died in this house from her own father being possessed by the Reverend, which I would imagine she knows
At this
because
point,
she's been here for a year as a ghost.
Ronnie Jr. was her dad.
Or sorry, brother. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
brother. Good catch. So she died in this house from a possessed family member. She probably knows the Reverend is there as a ghost. She's held in the ceiling, as we see, by somebody. So she knows there's an evil force here that can corrupt. So I would think it would be in her best interest to get them out sooner rather than later. I just want them to actually support that as something she's trying to do. I don't think they
I
built
would
that.
go with her, being how she died and the events of that, trying to scare them out of the house to like make them survive. But later on, her events with Chelsea trying to jump off the roof just
It's in
that for me.
direct conflict with what you would think would happen with her motives.
Unless Jodie over time, in the time people are in the house, change her.
Well, I mean, she could see them as lost causes now. Like, okay, they're not going to be leaving at this point. I just want Chelsea. I don't know.
but we
I
don't
think
see
Jodie's the worst thing of this movie.
We don't see any progression with that. That's something to be said. She might be.
Yeah. All right, you wanted to jump to the closet.
Yeah. What do we? First, I want to ask. I don't like that quote unquote jump scare because it's purely for the audience. The characters don't see it, perceive it, or anything, so I don't actually know why it is there in world for the characters. If that makes sense, it's purely there for the audience. What do you guys think of it?
As I explained before, it reminded me exactly like Beetlejuice, because the main characters aren't reacted to it at all, and it's just there for the audience of like a gag. So I found it funny. When I think it's supposed to be scary,
They're supposed.
But again-
The intention is to scare the audience. I think with it, because if it's laughter, they failed miserably.
Oh,
I
I don't
think
think it's supposed to
actually
be
a problem
scary because there's
is
no
that-
like loud noises or anything.
I think a problem is that we've just come from reviewing Beetlejuice, so like that's still fresh in my head. So like this scene just clicked like that for me.
That's fair. Crimson, you got thoughts on it? I'm guessing too.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what their intentions with it is because I think there is more to it other than this is for the audience to see.
Yeah.
'Cause if we're going with the angle that Jodie wants to scare them out, purely speculation, there might be some grounds, then the evil force, being the Reverend or whatever, grabs her at the end and in here. Might be trying to keep her from revealing herself to George, because we know at least in the closet she's strong enough to reveal herself to the babysitter in a physical form, to physically grab her and stuff. So that might be where she's strongest because she died in that closet. I don't know. So it could be the outside force trying to keep her from scaring them out. I don't know.
That would be the intent and particular. It's kind of also where I'm leaning because the intent I think is to scare the audience, but also to convey the fact that Jodie's not the singular force in the house. Is also I think the point of that scene.
No, the hands.
Yeah, the hands that are kind of holding her in place, preventing her from either warning.
Warning,
George,
scaring.
yeah, warning,
whatever it
scaring,
may
whatever.
be.
I guess is also the introduction scene of the hands,
Yes.
which I think is kind of poor. Especially because there's no reaction of the main character. That it gets sad. Not great.
It's one of the, it bugs me on the sense of like it's there and the characters don't notice it all. It bugs me a little bit for that because it's purely there for the audience, which is fine. I think I think the angle that you took with the Crimson does help a lot with it, and I don't want it deleted or anything, but it's weird that there's not. It feels like there's nothing there for the characters, even if like there was a sound of movement that George might have noticed, and looked in the direction and saw nothing. I think that would have helped, but
It would have been scary if Chelsea was talking to Jody and the hand took Jody while they were talking.
well,
I mean, that would
Chelsea
give
would see
Chelsea.
it, right?
Yeah, Chelsea would have some issues with her friend getting yanked by something, and then that would bring up something else that isn't in this movie, I think, because she believes Jody to be real and screams at her mom about it later and stuff. So if some like demon hands just pull her into the ground or through a wall
Jody's
or something,
grotesque with a bullet hole in her head, and Chelsea's totally fine.
that's a child for you. I don't know. I'm not Chelsea. I think equating a friendly-looking girl who has a bullet hole in her head to demon hands grabbing a perceived friend is a little different.
Well, to quote Jim Carrey's Grinch, children these days so desensitized to violence and
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah, I think a lot of the issues would just be fixed if we had Jody have reasons, a motive.
yeah.
I think her trying to scare them out would actually fix stuff, but we don't have it.
There's the thing, she does stuff incongruent with that possibility at the very beginning of the film. So it's out of character for her to, in instances of the film, even if we ascribe that motive.
Sprinks, I think you're up.
The beginning of the film being that I've never seen before, with Ronnie Jr. in the basement, and the timeline showing that it's November 13th, 1974, I thought this was one of those like 70s LSD kind of experiment. It's gone wrong.
I also got the sense of like, I actually kind of thought
The TV
yeah, the TV
really made me think that.
Yeah, the TV made me think of a government experiment gone wrong, like the idea that the government was experimenting on the family as well. So I definitely got that instance before they committed to like full apparition horror, but I like the idea that they even at least played into the fact that it also could have been a government's thing gone wrong. That's also a sense I got as well.
I didn't get that. But I don't really remember my first time viewing it, if I thought that or not. I was younger, so probably not. The TV is original to this movie, so
I
it's
see.
not based off of anything.
Yeah, I think it is there to at least imply a misdirection that it could have been a government experiment, at least in part, because otherwise I don't see the relevance to the story at all. Otherwise,
Another display of the demons or whatever voicing or channeling their voice through something, through the TV or the radio.
yeah.
Yeah, because it does
As an
have
excuse piece, or
in the middle of the image on the screen. It does show like a Indian head or whatever, like a iconography on it. So maybe. I don't know.
Personal
in the
anecdote. Sorry.
beginning, I would like to hear Ryder.
No. You're going first.
That one wasn't a clean transition,
No,
admittedly.
it was not. So you're
Ryder,
still
you
going
go.
first.
No, I'm host. You're going.
All right. I actually have a
Ooh, the
personal
host
anecdote.
card.
Yeah, I have a personal anecdote. The moment I saw like the kind of like those black air vents, you kind of see them like designed throughout the house. Having been in old houses and stayed in them for prolonged periods of time, it definitely can help add to the feeling of them being haunted or old timey, because you can hear people through this air vents talking from the other side of the house as like quiet whispers, and it's very, very creepy sometimes. It's just a little personal anecdote that I had. That was cool because the moment I saw that, I'm like, yes, that those are horrifying.
Yeah, and I think it used a little bit. They might have been able to use them more, actually, but we did hear the brothers talking bad about George. But later. I was going to bring up in the beginning was something you brought up right or yesterday about seizure warnings.
Yeah, I needed a fucking seizure warning because I don't have issues with that, but god damn it, I felt like I needed one for this because it hurt my ADHD perception.
How did you guys like it though? Other than the pain it caused, I quite liked it personally. Felt pretty stylized. There was one part where there's this like shining light behind him that obviously isn't the lightning, and it's like house lighting that looked a little off, but I liked it overall with the cuts to black. It was nice and stylized.
You want to go first, Sprinks?
It felt like a prank. That's what it felt like. There's no build up to it. It just happens, and without warning. I think it needed a build up at somewhere beforehand to get to that, and I think it would have been really good. On its own, I'm very neutral, just because it was like in Incredibles 2 with the screenslaver thing when it came out in theaters. And then it wasn't until I think like a week later where they actually put a warning at the beginning of the movie afterwards because of complaints.
I'm a little lost on the prank thing. When do you mean prank?
Like I boot up the movie and I get flashbanged.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily what you think of what's happening in the film itself, but it gave you the feeling of being pranked.
Yeah, just like there's no build up. It's like this is how the movie starts. Bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, oh, geez, my eyes.
I mean, it's supposed to be abrupt.
Yeah, but if I saw this in a theater, I don't know. I'd be blind for a moment. I'd have to like, blink off a couple. I'll probably miss a couple shots.
I don't think it was that bad. Okay.
It's got shock value. I'll say that.
Yeah,
that's a benefit to it.
I'm leaning towards Springs. I don't think I would call it being flashbang, but I understand the need. Like I definitely needed to pinch the bridge of my nose after after the opening, after the opening minute of it or so. And like close and blink a few times rapidly to kind of get over it, more or less. I did like the effect it was doing. Don't get me wrong. I think it definitely serves the abrupt shock value of it. I personally would have preferred to be eased into it. I think. So I don't necessarily need. Well, I guess build-up is another word for it. But I don't necessarily need a long, protracted, like. I don't need something very big to ease me into it. But I would have preferred to have been eased into it. It's not really an objective criticism I have of it. I still think it accomplishes its goals. It was just felt abrupt to me. It just kind of it did bug me a little bit. I guess would be the best way to phrase it.
I think the actor for Ronnie was pretty decent. I like the part where he's about to shoot Jody and says he loves her because I think they did a good job with his face there. You can tell he's still possessed, but a part of him's still in there and about to kill his sister. Kind of like when George at the end kind of breaks through and like, kill me. But I think that was a good performance there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was fine for the screen time he had.
And I guess a departure from the real life event. There was no one died in a closet. They were all killed in their beds, face down. So that was different.
Oh, so they did that just to like build up more of Jody's character of hearing to have an interaction, a sense of innocence.
Yeah. So this movie takes stuff from the book and the 79 movie, because the 79 movie introduces the babysitter and the closet. So it's kind of its own thing, but a mixture of other versions. So I don't know. Word.
Mm-hmm. I'll jump to the realtor. I quite like how nervous she is the entire time. How on edge she is. Like, she just wants to sell the house and get out of that. Wants to just be over with this particular job. It feels like she was assigned it, you know?
Yeah, and I like how she wasn't too cartoonishly scared to the point where they would notice, like, hey, what's wrong with you? What's going on
They would
here?
notice immediately, yeah.
Just subtle enough for like the audience knows she's scared, but not enough to off-put the what was it, Lutz's?
The Lutz's, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Sprinks disagrees
Sorry,
with this.
I never thought she was scared.
What?
No.
Oh, she
was anxious to get the house, to sell the house. I never.
She's too afraid to even go in the basement.
Yeah, she's the implication, at least to me, was that she is definitely nervous and scared about being in the house, which is why she's waiting outside. It's why she's, tapping her hand nervously, because she clearly is unnerved by the house. So she's already, I think, had some experiences there, just been on the more subtle end.
Okay. What sold me that she wasn't scared was when Kathy yelled in excitement and she came to look at her. The look on her face was like, oh no, something happened, but she came, she didn't scream in the background, she didn't run out of the house, she just came to look at them.
Yeah, she still jumped though.
She's brave enough.
Yeah, she still jumped.
She was out of frame.
No, you see her jump when you hear the scream.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I must have blinked. I didn't see it.
There is a shot of her where she is, where we're zoomed in on her and we see her jump when she hears the scream, and then she goes in to check on them. So yeah, she's definitely scared, but I like that it's subtle. I will jump to the footage. I kind of like their day one footage, like the found footage stuff that they have. It's very short, but it's a very like classic family thing to do. You're recording the first day in your new house and stuff like that. It was I wasn't sure how much time went past, but I know it was more than a day, so I guess I was a little bit bugged by the title drop or whatever, but it still worked.
Yes, the home video. I think the home video cameras are the film cameras used, and that it was just edited with brightened exposure rather than using home video cameras at the time of 2005.
Probably.
Because the quality lines up to the film quality, and there isn't, film grain, which I guess they could have added but chose not to, then having camera hand there's also a point that kind of helps this, but handheld camera like VCR tape, because the film grain in that could have been sharpened later in editing, but I think it would have looked definitely a little more cartoonishly black outlined. So I really do think they went with that. And what helps prove this is when they play it back, when George is in the basement later on, he's actually playing film reel tape. So that kind of shows that when it was recorded, they had film reel being recording it.
Yeah, this takes place in 1975. So definitely the time you would be using that. But in terms of the actual movie, I don't think they used old tech for it. They just slapped some editing chops in there.
It's probably cheaper to do that, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you already have it on hand. Well, actually, that's a good question. Does a camcorder of VCR or VHS tape recording cost less than the film made for the film? Because when a shot screws up on a film, that's money wasted on that. So I don't know.
Well, this movie was filmed in 35 millimeter. That was one of the facts I found while looking up stuff.
Yeah. I guess it's just in that home video portion of the film, is that coverage on 35 millimeter worth more than if they went and bought the actual home video for that time? Well, then
I think the hassle
I
would have
guess they
cost more
couldn't.
than the purchase of him.
Actually, they couldn't, because then that would be a problem, being that it's set in 75. To display it historically accurate, they'd have to use what was available in 75.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my confusion on 2005 release date. Not lining up. Got it.
Oh no, not too bad. I think could have been better with more grain. Agreed, but it's not horrible.
I really like
Springs.
at the beginning of Ron going through the house, the sepia tone coloring really complements that it's past events, and then the only lighting is lightning coming in through the windows.
I agree.
At the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ronald. They say his name different ways.
Ronnie Jr.
Jimmy.
Well, I
Ron,
agree. Yeah, the
Ronnie
sepia
Jr.
was a good choice.
And I think the lightning gave it a definitely eerie effect of like almost to the point. Well, there was enough where we could see movement, but almost like stills of him kind of jumping around the house.
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I do quite enjoy the. I did enjoy the flash. Once I got over it, I did enjoy the flash effects too. How like it's hiding a lot of the brutality, but in a way that would still fit the film.
Something I think this movie does well is setting up stuff, like the boathouse. The realtor saying the basement was made in 1692, little on the nose, but definitely something that could be said when selling a house. It's not outlandish. Just a lot of the settings were, I think, decently set up for future scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But disagreement from Sprinks. What?
No. One of my issues was not knowing if George and Kathy were locals.
We have no idea where they came from. Well, actually, no, we do know.
Long Island,
Yeah, they
New
came
York,
from,
I think, right?
Deer Park,
Deer Park.
Long Island.
Yeah.
And they drove to this house.
This house is in Long Island. I just don't know how far Deer Park is from it.
And the event's only been a year.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I see what you mean. You don't know how long they've been in the area.
Like, just them coming up and, like, the house for sale and the news. Like, it doesn't take Kathy... It takes her 28 days to finally, like, something's up, I gotta investigate.
Yeah. She didn't investigate on the first day after the realtor told her.
No, I agree with you on that one, that she took forever to research. I wrote that down as well.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have to be a day one thing, but 28 days is
but if
pretty
like
ridiculous.
A mass family murder in the vicinity of like where you live, I feel like it would be covered like on the news. Even at the point where they're like, "Oh, isn't that the house?" And Kathy goes, "No, it can't be the same house," until later stated to like just wear it off because of how much she wants the house. But both of them just like unbeknownst.
That's totally fine. Not everyone knows everything that happens. Especially in the 70s, there's just not a lot of stuff. You don't have to be huddled around a TV or a radio all the time to hear about events. I'm not too worried about it. On the true story aspect, the Lutzes didn't know about it either until the realtor tells them. So that's consistent with reality. Except the realtor said it before they agreed to buying the house. And this, it was after they said they were going to buy it. Let's see. We'll go with writer again because I haven't read my notes to bring up a point yet.
Sure. I will talk about more of George just being a good dad before the proper like possession starts setting in. When he's overhearing Kathy talk to Michael about him missing his dad, and he asks after I think he asks after Billy, but he's still, I like that he doesn't directly like ask after them because it shows he's trying to just give them the space they need, and I actually quite appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good dad trait. They. This is gonna. The reason I'm pointing all this stuff out is because there's actually a lot of setup that's not really paid off later on.
Oh, interesting. I am curious to hear that when that's relevant. Let's see. The torture device that Michael finds was a little out of place for me. I would think that would be in the secret rooms, the dungeons or whatever that's behind the wall, and not in
Just
the
lying
basement
out in the
area.
basement. Yeah.
Because that's completely walled off and didn't look like it was fixed after the murders the year previous. Didn't look like a new addition.
The best.
We don't even know if Ronnie found that area.
Yeah, the best faith interpretation is that Ronnie is the one that found it somewhere on the property and just brought it to the basement. So it wasn't necessarily a dungeon. He just found it on the property. Yeah,
That's what I want.
That's my best faith interpretation. I don't have anything in the film that disproves it or approves it, though.
Mm-hmm. And just its addition just doesn't really add much of anything other than it connects to the Reverend storyline and the book later, and I guess gives a reason for George to be a little upset for just to show he's cracking a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, he's sick, right? Like he's getting sick at the time because it's kind of implied after the first.
His eyes are getting bloodshot at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Things are happening. We don't know what day this is, though. This is within the 15 days.
Yeah.
Which I don't like that it says day 15 because it really means nothing.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah.
I
That
agree.
really gave me a confusion.
Okay, let's hear it.
I thought with how the movie was structured of going day to night and not skipping to a different time, like it's not one day and then skipping to the next day or something, not just like indicating with another day title sequence, but showing like an actual change in clothes kind of situation of time, and that it's going day to night, that I thought we were literally sticking to the time until the jump to day 15, because I thought it jumped 13 days ahead and George is still on Billy about taking the keys.
Yeah, that's. I could see how you saw that. Yeah, we don't. That's my problem with this 15-day thing is we have no time window for anything in the movie. Day 15 isn't even really relevant. I don't even know why that's an important marker to say this is day 15. It's not even halfway through the 28 days. Day 14 would have been half.
I just took it as time passed. Like it's an indication that like now we've jumped. But prior, I honestly thought it was day 1, night 1, day 2, night 2, and then jumps to day 15.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like that, but I definitely can understand why you got that. I know we went through like maybe I thought we went through maybe 4 or 5 days, I think, and then we ended up there. But it was quite a big jump if that's true. If their intention was just to show the first 2 days.
We definitely didn't see 15 days.
Yeah, I know that for sure.
We did not see 15 days. I'm going to go with the accusation of the keys, then asking forgiveness or for the keys or whatever would probably be close to each other and not 13
almost
days.
2 weeks apart.
Yeah.
I'm going to think that's probably closer in the timeline because that just makes more sense.
I'm just going to ask. We think the house stole the keys, right?
Jody, Reverend, house, whatever. Yeah. Something.
Yeah.
Some being of the house.
Because one of the things that I actually
Jody told Chelsea to do it.
Yeah, one of the things I actually am happy about is that we circumvented some drama because it didn't. I like that Kathy didn't accuse George of leaving the boathouse unlocked. Like she knew, she knows he locked it and trusted him enough to know that he did that. I actually quite like that. It circumvented some unnecessary drama for me.
I agree. He definitely could have took that route.
Yeah.
Words.
Yeah. So I
That's
appreciated the fact that they trust each other enough implicitly, even though he's slowly starting to be possessed, that she knows it's not his fault that ultimately that over what happened.
yeah. The whole. Nah, I'll have to say that for Act 3. Oh well. Chelsea in the boathouse with the balloon. It's very interesting that she just has a balloon.
Where'd it come from?
I
Obviously,
don't. Well, we
obviously
see.
the clown. In
Thank you. Yep.
Pennywise.
Gary's not too far from, I guess, Deer Park, wherever this house is.
We see in the footage we see the family footage. There's a bundle of balloons that Chelsea is holding. So I guess this is just one of those balloons later.
Yeah, maybe she made one for Jody, but I don't know.
So I guess this balloon just kept for however long this moment in time was. 10 days, 9 days, who knows? This boathouse bit, I don't know.
What indicated that Chelsea was outside when they were looking for her?
Yeah, I wrote
Nothing.
nothing. I also wrote this down in my notes as well. I'm like, I guess it's lucky they went outside first, because I think the first thing they would have done was search the house.
Yeah, but they just chose not to. Nothing showed Chelsea outside prior.
Yeah, okay, this is Beth Faith interpretation again. I assume they searched the house first and then went outside together to look for her. But again, I don't.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I don't
They
think so
immediately,
either.
after Kathy asked, they were all in the front lawn.
Yeah, it just cuts to them going out front. And I had a small pacing issue with that, but
More best faith. Maybe George said, well, she was out here at one point, and then
No,
they
he
searched the
didn't say
grounds.
Yeah, God, please just
Well, it would be an off-screen best faith scenario.
Yeah, it would be off-screen best case scenario. This is where you need to just throw in a line of ADR and just show them come outside.
Oh, yeah. I just had it. They never checked the house.
Yeah. I find it weird that they don't check the house first. But
it's weird, but it's not impossible.
It's weird, but not impossible. It's definitely odd. That's why I have so many pacing issues with this film. I have a lot of plot issues that bleed into character.
It could have easily just been Billy or Michael saying she's probably in her room talking to her friend. But no, there was instant panic. Where is she?
Yeah. It just needed a bit more to get to that point. I understand they're trying to quickly get to the more like paranormal like
right, or they got that night one with Jodie hanging herself.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
They're definitely shooting. One of the when I was collecting screenshots for this, and then one of the reviews I ended up reading about the film is that it doesn't let you breathe. Like there's no time for there's never a point where it slows down. It's just constant like eeriness and scariness, and it kind of grows. You grow numb to it at some point, you know.
there's no build-up.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually might be a huge flaw I have with this movie. There's no build-up to anything.
No build-up.
And then, funny enough, one of my biggest flaws is there is build-up but no payoff in some cases too.
And I feel like George getting possessed by the end is built up in that aspect. I mean, what are you saying isn't built up, Franks?
The scares. It's just jump scares. It's just spooks. It's not like freaks and like plays of like Michael going to the bathroom. There's some noise, and that's something, but then the scare is for the audience and not for Michael. Michael's just like, spooky night, which any little kid,
it doesn't sound like
happens.
That's an interesting scene to kind of bring up because it's actually, I think, one of my favorite scenes in the film. Because you're right in that it's for the audience, but it doesn't overdo it. It doesn't overstay its welcome. You know, the buildup is squarely focused on Michael's reaction as a character, one of my favorite shots in the film is the POV shot from him like at the bathtub looking at the door, and it's from that really low angle, which would be his height.
Mhm.
Yeah, that to me was kind of a good scene for build up, I think, in terms of trying to build up to the scare of the monster. Even if whether or not Michael sees it, because it's clearly there for the audience. I'm in agreement with Springs. It's not there for Michael, but the creepiness is there for him, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, I think they build up the jump scare on that one. I also agree. The jump scare for the audience, and this one I can't really explain. The other ones, Jody could be having motives to scare the family out. This one of the Indian guy, I don't know what that is.
I don't know.
But that's there to scare Michael, right? That's its purpose.
But
in
it failed,
the world.
I guess. I don't know what its.
You didn't see it.
Is.
Yeah, Michael doesn't see it. You just kind of see that it's I guess my interpretation of it is that it's fucking with him, but I don't know if it's trying to like. I don't get anything beyond the fact that it just wants to fuck with him, you know.
I have no idea what it's doing. It scares him in the bathroom. It's in the boathouse trying to scare George into killing Harry or whatever. I don't know what this thing is really doing in this story.
Well, also, we go from a red balloon to blood coming out of the sink faucet. Yeah, they're touching on it a little too much.
I mean, blood coming out of stuff is like 100,000 horror movies. I'm not going to say it's directly it.
Back to back.
Is that
so
one,
they could have taken the blood from something else.
Is that the scene where it starts bleeding from the light switch? Or
No,
is that
was in the closet.
Okay.
That's
yeah, that's with the babysitter. Okay.
Yeah, the Evil Dead light.
Mm-hmm.
The reference to it, at least.
Potentially.
Potentially.
It's not a hard creative thing to make a bloody light bulb. I don't like auto-assigning references.
Fair enough.
Let's see. How are you guys looking for Act 1?
I will skim. Give me a second.
I got a little. The sign, High Hopes. I went straight to the Little Hope.
Same thing.
Though, Crimson, you seem to be more knowledge on that than I do.
I played a little bit of the game of Little Hope. But not that much of it. But I did jump to the same thing. Yeah.
Being introduced to a little boy named Michael wearing a mask, even though a scuba mask, in a horror movie. I've seen that before.
Oh, gotcha.
I do got one minor note. I think I realized what I was confusing about earlier. Why I thought it had 5 or 6 days it went past. By virtue of the fact of me moving around a lot, I just assumed when it started with day 1 and we started going into the family footage stuff, I just assumed that was over the course of a couple days. And the reason for that is because that they otherwise they moved everything into the big house in one day, and I would have had an issue with that. Not moving everything in, but like unpacking everything.
Yeah, because that family montage is for the audience at that point. Later, it's for George in the basement, but at that point, it's for the audience, and that could have been spread out through 15 days.
Yeah, I assumed that was the first 2 or 3 days.
But they're swimming, they're doing activities as well as moving in.
Yeah.
Right,
Ryder, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Happy to help.
I'm now on the fence. Didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, happy to help. All right, I'm gonna keep scrolling through my notes.
Didn't cross your mind that it could have been multiple days?
Yeah, I thought that was all day 1 stuff.
I don't blame him for
Ryder
that.
saying that they didn't, just unpacking in the house was just like 1 day occurrence. I went, oh, okay.
I mean, you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
But there was other activities like playing in the water and a lot of things that would eat up time within 1 day. So I saw it as more than 1 day, personally.
Okay. Yeah, I have it as 1 day.
We have a scene of George having a nightmare of him killing the family and then offing himself.
Lame.
All
right, I'm not a huge fan of the waking up in a dream to wake up in a from a dream play in a movie?
This is more a subjective thing and not a.
Yeah,
critique.
I'm more for like you never knew when they fell asleep.
Yeah, I mean, we brought that in. Been something else. Yeah.
Maybe.
My issue with it is just the him offing himself part, because even with Ronnie, that didn't happen with him. He never tried to take himself out. He gets arrested.
I guess George just loves his family more.
Yeah. Well, then again, it's Dream George.
Yeah, Dream George.
I actually, even though Kathy was angry at George for leaving the boathouse unlocked, at least theoretically leaving the boathouse unlocked for the first time for when Chelsea ends up in there. I like that Kathy gets a little bit angry at George, and George feels horrible about it. It kind of helps drive him into, I guess, a little more distant and depressed state during his possession. But it's still, it's good stuff that's justified family tension,
Yeah. I think it fits.
Last note I have for this act is what was making the bubbles in the boathouse for George to jump in?
The thing I have for that, and it's loose, is the 20 bodies they found in the lake that we find out later. So that could just be a ghost under
pretty
the
loose.
lake. I mean, I think it's enough to justify it, but it is loose.
Well, I guess
see one
the
in there
question
later.
to like go now with what we each perceived. Are ghosts physical in world, or are they all illusion to people? Like, is their actions illusions, or are they physical manifestations?
I'm going with physical, because doesn't the babysitter get bloody fingers?
That one was poorly portrayed. That in the books and in the 79 movie, well, not in the books. What am I saying? That's not in the books. The 79 movie, she knocks till her hands are bloody because she's in there so long, knocking on the door.
Oh,
I'm assuming that's what they're doing here, because it's not just her finger that's bloody; it's both her hands. She's just knocking on the door.
taking this
Well-
film individually as it's supposed to be, I have to assume the ghost is physical.
Well, yeah, it grabs her finger. I think that's physical. It closes doors and windows. I think there's a physical element if it wants to be.
Person, for clarification on my end,
Yeah.
your facts of the movie going back to things, are they in reference to the 79 movie and the additional real life events?
It's all interconnected. This movie takes stuff from the 79 movie and the story, the book, and the real life events. This is kind of a culmination of several adaptations of this story. So, like I said before, the babysitter isn't in the real life story, but the 79 added her, so this movie added her. So some stuff is interlocked.
Okay. I just want that clarified because I see those two things as difference to me.
Which things? The bloody hands? Or?
Like the bloody hands for the babysitter, I see that as a reference to the 79 movie and not, depictions of what occurred on the real life event.
Oh yeah, there was no babysitter, so that never happened.
So to me, this 2005 movie is just an adaptation of that, of referencing the 79.
In some stuff, it is not a direct remake of the 79. There's stuff 79 has that this doesn't, that is in the books and the story. It's a very complicated timeline of things that I had to look at.
Okay, what I'm trying to get at is anything connected to the 79 movie or books I see as simply reference for movie making and not for the based on the true event, which is what I'd credit the film more towards trying to get right.
Well, the book is based on the events. The author interviewed everyone that was involved. The priest, the Lutzes, and Ronnie. So it's as real as the
Okay.
events, the book.
Okay.
The movies
That
take
clears
liberties.
something up. Okay, good. I thought the book was someone's take on the story, or okay, it's actual documented
It's
event of what I've
researched.
heard. Okay.
Yeah. All right, everyone good on this act?
My last note is just the dog being aware of the paranormal. It's a classic trope. I enjoy it.
It's a classic trope, but it doesn't really lead anywhere other than it has the dog. Like it goes to the boathouse and barks, and I guess that's where the 20 bodies are. So and that whatever.
It also is barking at the window, and it's also barking. It's digging at the entrance into the basement.
It is digging at the basement. That's true.
It's part of the reason why I think the house killed the previous dog too, with Ronnie's dog, and
probably did.
Yeah, that's why. That's why this house also killed their dog, the Lutz's dog, because it knows it knows too much.
In my research of all the versions of this story, movies, books, everything, apparently the '79 movie is more focused on the house being haunted, while this one's mostly the spirits being the haunting, and yeah. Differing stuff there. On to Act 2, where we're going from day 15 to when Puppers is no longer with us. Harry the dog.
No.
It would have been interesting to see what happened to Ronnie's mind loss throughout those 28 days for himself, since he didn't have Jody or the family ghosts interacting. Like, it would have been the Reverend, so I feel like more horror would have been onto Ronnie losing his mind.
I prefer the shortened Ronnie, where it's a punch instead of a build-up of... Because then we could just have a separate movie on Ronnie.
Oh, sorry, you have me confused on what I meant. No. I don't mean like to prolong this movie longer of that. I mean like its own story shown of a movie.
He means in concept. Crimson. Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how Ronnie fell, I guess, without Jody being a contributor.
Like it would have all been the Reverends.
Yeah, I agree. It would be an interesting tie-in.
Oh shoot!
Because what's the first instance without Jody of a scare to George in this movie? What is the first instance? Is it Michael Night 2? Or quote unquote Night 2?
I think it might be the air bubbles. That might be the first thing that's not Jody related.
The air bubbles, okay.
All the open windows.
That all the open windows that open constantly. Maybe the cold, because you can't keep warm or whatever.
Yeah. So.
I
guess a lot of indirect potentials for that one.
Yeah, I just remembered two quick notes. One, I was really angry that they kept the clock. Like, why would you keep that? And then they explained it in the sense of like the house maybe possessed them to keep it. And then the big boiler furnace to warm up the house. The big demon fire or whatever that was there when he threw a log in.
Yeah, the demon can reenact fire.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
The Home Alone.
It doesn't surprise me that
demons in Home Alone?
Well,
remember the furnace in Home Alone where it like opens and scares them?
I haven't seen Home Alone in a long time. No.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. But anyway, it's just that. That was all. There we go.
Okay. We'll jump into Act 2 with Sprinks.
Well, as I stated, I really thought that George was going on about billing the keys 13 days later.
Okay.
And then I like little Wally West running around the house, catching Kathy's attention. Or trying, I guess.
Yeah.
She doesn't indirectly ever see it.
Yeah. Again, this ties into is she I assume she's now trying to scare them out of the house, but again, don't really know who Jodie is as a character. But it's interesting that she also does that to Kathy, the catch him and kill him bit with the fridge note, the fridge
The magnets,
letters.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a detail I caught that I like, that shows that they're physical and not illusion, because when George gets like water out of a jug from the fridge and it like pans down to show the fridge, all the magnets on that part can spell out catch him and kill him how they did previously.
But they're all just scattered now, you know.
Yes, but none were like not there or missing.
Did Jodie scramble him or George?
Good question. Don't know.
Okay, this is gonna get into what the fuck is, when does full possession take place? I don't think George is fully possessed until he gets bathed in the Reverend's blood. That being said, it could have been George. But again, I don't know the limits of the house's power or ability and what they have you. Of whether, I don't even know if it was Jodie that did that. It could have been the house itself, because we see the house move chairs around.
Well, do you guys see this as a possession or an influence?
Influence, because George is still talking like George.
To
The
a
Reverend
point,
isn't
it's
talking
influence.
through him.
To a point, it's influence.
Okay. What's
see
the
it like
point
The
where it
Shining.
isn't influence?
Oh, like I said, when he's bathed in the blood, at that point, it's full possession.
Interesting. Well then, why would the Reverend possessing him? Oh, that's third act stuff. We'll get to that. I'll hold that down later. All right, Ryder, you're up next.
Okay. I should have prepared for this. My one of my funny bits is that I know that, again, this is supporting Kathy and George's relationship, is she probably recognizes how stressed out, or his decline more or less, and wants to go out on a date with him. I like that he's, more normal during the date. I like that he's, it's a very kind of wholesome scene that I really appreciate, because it kind of highlights why Kathy is willing to go so far for him later in the film. I view that as one of the better setups that does have a payoff. And then obviously I like the joke about the babysitter. He's like, "So you still don't want a babysitter?"
I think that was the funniest joke in the movie. Not that there's that many jokes, but
I agree that one landed for me. It's pretty funny. I like it too that Kathy was the one to get the babysitter, because I guess she knows her son.
this will do it. Yeah, I like how they set up her knowledge of George being normal outside of the house. So her figuring out at the end, like, once we get him out of the house, it's all good. Because every time he's left, his eyes are clear. He's back to good old George. So I think they did good with her on that. The babysitter, I recognize the actress from this little-known Canadian sci-fi show, Continuum. She was the main character in that one, Kara. Yeah. It's a time travel show. It's cool. Anyways, very different role in this. Very weird character, Lisa, the babysitter.
Quite the outfit.
Yes.
Yeah. I think purely for Michael.
Michael?
Well, I mean,
I thought it was for Billy more.
Billy.
Is Michael the older one?
Nope.
No, Billy's the older one.
Billy's the older one. Okay.
Michael's the one I would almost argue is removable, but
Michael is an actor who, I don't know if this is his first work, but he played young Captain Kirk in the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie.
Oh, 2009?
Yeah, he's the one driving the car.
That would.
He's also the main character in the movie Shorts.
Yeah, I've also seen him in something else, but I don't know. Now I need to look it up. I definitely know him from something else too. He was a child actor in a good amount of stuff.
Yeah, he's
Oh, Poseidon. That's what it was.
All right, yeah. I guess I had Billy. I thought it was Billy was the oldest and Michael was the youngest, but I guess I get confused. I guess something's.
And sometimes Billy gets called William.
That is true. That happens like twice.
Anyway, yeah, I totally think that because Kathy's the one that explicitly says she got the babysitter, I think she legitimately wanted to get someone sexy to distract her son. I legitimately think she's just being.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I mean, she.
Do you think she knew the physical appearance of Lisa before she arrived?
No, but I know she picked Lisa, and she clearly doesn't seem angry by her choice of outfit.
I'm sure she doesn't make a fuss out of it.
Yeah, she definitely doesn't.
No.
Make a
I don't
fuss
know
out of
how
it.
much. I don't know how much of it is coordinated, but
I don't
yeah,
think
she
I
did
don't
pick
think she
that
went out of her
babysitter.
way to coordinate. Oh, by the way, dress super sexy for my son. It'll be fine. I don't think she explicitly said that, but I think if she's wearing this to her babysitting job, I wouldn't be surprised if she was wearing something similar when they ran into her at the supermarket or whatever that Kathy said she found them.
I thought Kathy said that she found it on like a flyer at the supermarket,
Uh,
like a messaging board.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
In either case, she doesn't make a fuss about it. So I find it amusing that her mother was just that Kathy was just like, "Yep, go have fun."
Lisa was definitely correct by saying I suck at babysitting. I mean, she's
she
talking about French kissing to a 13-year-old or whatever.
She's not
who
watching the kids. I was
literally
real
hasn't
curious
done
where the heck
anything.
Chelsea and Michael were.
They're playing Operation in a side room somewhere.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy they showed that. The fact that they can entertain themselves. They don't necessarily need to be looked after. But I like that they're still an adult in the house and good stuff. I liked it.
Freaking Lisa doing drugs in the bathroom while babysitting.
Yep.
She's off.
Crimson, question for you, whether this is based on reality or not.
Mhm.
Is the restaurant actually called Italian Kitchen Restaurant?
There was no restaurant. And the real story, the whole family, because like I said, there was no babysitters. The whole family went to a wedding. So that got swapped out, and this for the babysitting thing. The 79 version, the parents go to the wedding, but the kids stay with the babysitter. So more variation.
Great. I found it a very generic, bland name.
Oh, it was. I wrote it down too.
Yeah, I wrote it down as well. I'm like, that's funny. Moving on.
Italian
Kitchen Restaurant. I'm like, that just sounds redundant.
It's not a great name. Not
The detail-
clever at all.
The detail I liked of that scene was Kathy trying to rekindle with George, and her explanation of notice to what I picked up was the 15 days of passing change, and George steered the conversation into the whole relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
I think
She did make it more relevant to the events of the house while he was being broad.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Kathy intentionally steered him there. To be honest with you, I think Kathy wanted to get like a vibe check on their whole relationship as a whole, because I think she was worried.
She was worried.
Yes.
Who knows? I might have just said the same thing that you meant, Sprinks, but I just said it differently.
Maybe I didn't see Kathy asking about the whole relationship. I guess that's the difference.
I thought it was. She was just trying to. She didn't want to be the one to bring it up, if that makes sense. It was her nudging George to tell her what she wanted to hear. Like what was, to get to the bottom of it.
I'd have to re-see it again.
Yeah. I guess the reason on that
For
is
both
because,
accounts.
yeah, I guess the reason
What I picked up. Oh, okay, you go.
No, you go. Go on.
Oh, great. What I picked up was the line delivery and acting of Kathy when George gives her his answer, and how choked up her words are that she speaks out.
Yes, I took it as relief from her.
I have
That
the
things are still
choked back
okay.
emotion, and Kathy's voice about the Lutz charm sells it for me. That's what I wrote.
Yeah. For me, I took that as kind of relief that she was relieved to hear that because of how distant / rough it's been for him. Which is fair. I actually think both of these interpretations work well with this scene. Both in the case of both interpretations, they're both support. The point of the scene is supporting their relationship, to show that they actually do communicate, talk, and care about each other in a healthy manner when they're not at home at this point, because the home is driving George up a wall.
Crazy. Alright, we get Billy cutting wood all day. Punishment.
Talking about
for
ending the team.
stealing keys.
Or whatever, but...
Yeah. I do like the line was when the body suffers, the spirit flowers. It's kind of a good mantra, I think. A little extreme in this instance, but
that for me, that was very
not
much
too
a
bad.
Jeremiah kind of line.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, the Reverend.
Ah, okay.
And for me, it was very much a Jeremiah kind of line, because it sounds like something... That line sounds like something you'd hear, like, a classic religious villain might say, if that makes sense. It works as a double entendre, like his spirit's already slowly being corrupted and influenced.
I never saw it that way, but I can see that. Yeah,
Because
it does have a tint of a religious leader.
Yeah, a little bit of religious zealotry in it, you know.
But I do believe it is still George's father. Is saying. I can see the double entendres, but
yeah, I'm like I said, it's one of those things I did. That's a line I appreciated, I suppose, because you could be read, even though it is supposed to be George's father. I think you could also read it as to why he focuses on it now, being the influence.
And I do like the camera work at this table scene with George in the middle with this slow zoom in, kind of making it a bit uneasy.
I like that.
So everyone's uncomfortable.
I like that George also doesn't like the food he made, and they're...
Yeah, he never does.
Yeah, even possessed, he still can't make a good meal.
True.
Can't cook for the life of him.
Sprinks.
Looking at my notes. The babysitter Lisa. Hopefully this reference is old enough to say, but she got Cassandra Nova'd.
Oh my gosh! You just spoiled something. No, I
Did I know?
Totally fine. I mean, Casanova got Jodied because this was way before that.
Sure. I'm not picking up what you're putting down, but okay, cool.
Well, I mean, you were referencing that. It's fine, whatever. I flipped it. I flipped it the opposite of what you said.
Oh, I'm like, you went to Casanova, and I'm like, sure.
Not Casanova, whatever. Yeah. Words, me.
Crimson, I think you really botched what you were trying to tell me.
I did. Whatever her face. What's her name again?
Who?
Freaking Deadpool Wolverine, who you just said.
Cassandra Nova.
Cassandra. I combined Casanova. Cassandra Nova. I just flipped what you said. It's not a big deal. All right. Chelsea goes on the roof and is a maniac. Billy lets her go get her doll and said his mom would kill him if he gets caught letting her out of his sight.
To be fair,
And
beat you to it.
It happens.
Yeah, to be fair, he had no reason to believe she was going to go commit suicide.
You're right. I would have done the same thing in Billy's position. Why would I assume something bad would happen?
Yeah, I don't blame Billy for that scene.
I mean, Kathy doesn't even yell at him either.
Yeah,
I blame Billy and Michael holding the ladder when George climbs up, and then they knock the ladder over.
Oh, I don't think that was them, to be honest. But I guess that's fair.
That was probably Jody.
I'm like, I don't know why they'd run away. Like if they're
That's probably
supposed to
Jody
hold the
that knocked
ladder, if
it
it fell
over.
over, then put the ladder back up.
Yeah, I thought that was the house, the Reverend Jody, whoever was trying to egg Chelsea on. I assumed that's what was going on with why the ladder fell away and got knocked away. The only issue I take in with that scene is that why didn't, the brothers try to set it back up again?
Maybe not relevant. Because the scene cuts when they save her and then they are off the roof.
Yeah, it might not be relevant, but it bugged me a little bit that the brothers didn't try to help, or they didn't show that, because I don't know.
It looks like the ladder knocked over on its own when
Yeah.
last we saw them was holding it in place.
Yeah, it's again oddly cut, oddly paced. I can infer a bunch of different things, but I'm not clear on what inference is correct.
Yes, it's definitely open to interpretation. Kids left and the ladder fell. Kids were there, but it got forced by Jody, would be my guess. I don't know why the Reverend would be sabotaging George. I think Jody would, to ensure Chelsea not making it, because that's what she wants at this point. But yeah, lots of inference, nothing definitive to back them. I don't know.
I think one of the most unsettling scenes for me is obviously when after the babysitter gets rescued and you can see George pacing in front of Billy and Michael.
I was just about to ask a question about this to you, writer.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, ask your question.
What do you think of the line delivery or line usage, being a writer, your main thing of writing, of run being used?
In general, or do you mean like
in the scene?
I think it works because he's under the influence of the house again. I would have issues if he was far. I would have issues if this was not at the house, if that makes sense. It would be crossing a line for George's character. But I think here it works because George is turning off the being nice part, because here all the stresses are kind of been exaggerated for him, and like he still hasn't gotten his first apology from Billy over the keys incident. So obviously he's angry with the boys because he's blaming them for what happened.
Okay. So you see it as a fueled anger / influence of the house for the line being used out of George in character.
Yes. Are you asking specifically on the dialogue, like just why the word run, or? Yes,
but to you it fits.
It fits, yes, with all that context.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I can't think of any immediate alternatives that would I guess work as replacements off the top of my head, because I think it
Skippity up those stairs, boy.
Yeah, it's very much on the underpinning the creepy undertone feeling of threat that is played up on this scene as to why I think the line works. But I assume you have your own opinion on it because you asked.
I do, but I want to hear Crimson's first.
I pretty much agree with what Ryder said. I think it fits with his current anger levels. He's got the reddish eyes at this point, so he's back under the influence of the Reverend House, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's justifiable. But I'm interested to hear your alternative.
Okay.
I have one.
I found this to be one of the funniest lines in the whole movie. It made me laugh.
Okay.
Him just saying run and then doing that, like a scare thing in a horror when the villain like gives the edge of like, oh, I'm so much better, I'm above you, but I'll give you a chance to like, toying with the food situation, and he just says run. Thinking on it, I didn't know if this was like George's way of saying, hey, things could get worse if you stay, and that's George talking out of the influence, like his inner part saying like run, like get out of my sight to protect yourselves. I didn't know if that was portrayed, and I was curious if one of you two saw it that way. But I just found it really funny of him being real pissed, and his last line before like go to bed or get out of my sight is just run.
No, I didn't get humor out of it. I saw it as foreboding or threatening.
I can definitely see it subjectively funny. I would never take that as I guess their intent, I suppose.
Okay.
Back on the
What-
roof for me is Chloe Moretz, Chelsea walking on the roof. That looks so real that I don't know if it is real. I can't
Yeah,
tell
their own stunts.
what's there.
You already said it earlier.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if that's of the real height of the building. I can't tell what tricks are being played here.
You can't tell if it's green, blue
'Cause
screened
There's no
lower,
way it's
or
blue
if it's.
screened because the background matches movements of the building so perfectly. I don't think that it could have done that.
I agree. I don't.
And the
trust that
background
either.
isn't fake. There's got to be something going here because that's too dangerous for a kid to do that. But I have no idea how they did it. It looks pretty darn authentic, and I feel like there's tricks afoot.
Agree. How I think it was done was wires with a crane.
Essentially.
That would be my assumption as well. My, I guess, only issue, it's not really an issue, it's just she got around the chimney somehow. That's difficult for even her mom to do. Like while she's walking from one end of
With
the house to
longer
the other.
legs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my
Fair.
only issue. Is it got a little bit of a teleporting Chelsea, but not a big issue.
Is it possible that she didn't go around the chimney but over it?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, I don't
It
have.
would
It's not.
take more
It's
effort,
a
but it's
nitpick.
possible.
It's a nitpick. I don't have a. Don't see a. I whatever.
I just think going over the chimney seemed easier because at least you have a mantle and
For
something
a
to
kid,
be
yeah.
on.
Yeah, for a kid, I agree.
Going
I think
around, Kathy wasn't. She was scrambling. She had nothing to grab or step on with.
for a kid, I do think going over the chimney would be easier. It would be more time consuming, obviously, but it would be the best way.
The nitpick I have for the roof as well is the fact that she threw or dropped the cat doll.
Yeah.
Why?
No idea.
She
To make
probably
movies
would have
look
jumped
up.
with it.
Movie moment.
Movie moment
Yeah,
is
movie
probably a good description for it. Yeah.
Because she could have said it earlier of like "Hi, mommy," when she's like trying to flag it out and still have the doll.
Just a movie moment.
Totally forgot to bring it up since we were just in the scene of the run. I like how despondent the brothers are about sleeping in the same bed as the dead boys from the previous family.
Oh, but they've been sleeping in those beds for the past 15 days.
Yeah, but they didn't know.
Been fine.
But now they have
Yeah.
conflicts.
Yeah.
I
Sleep on the floor.
want to go back and see the flashbacks of the original killings if it's the same beds or not.
They say
So,
we have the babysitter's word to rely on, which I guess is unreliable narrators, so take it out with a grain of salt. But she says they
She
are.
said it was the same rooms.
She says same beds.
she
lists off the
said- she
beds.
said same bed.
She was listing things.
Then, well,
because I just find it a bit peculiar to not bring your own beds when moving in. But
So I found it peculiar that they didn't bring his own alarm clock. He just kept the demonic one. But I guess that's one of my issues with this house. I didn't know where their stuff like ended at
what's
a certain
furbished
point.
and what's not.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because we see them
Ooh.
walking through an empty house, but it's very vague about what's theirs and what was there beforehand. Because there was a lot of stuff in the basement
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Right, or I'm on the fence because it's a retelling of a story from the babysitter.
That's fair.
I mean it can definitely be backed by looking at the flashback, but I don't have it up to do that.
Yeah.
Nor do I.
But it's a scary story retelling, Real
I mean,
classic.
they definitely
like,
died in the
and
beds.
they died in the same bed you were in. It's like,
Yeah, she could be exaggerating. Like I said, that's totally an option. I'm curious, I guess, to see if it's actually true. And either way, I think the boys' reactions is perfectly rational and normal.
Oh,
now that they think they're in the beds,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would feel uneasy. Well, especially as a child.
Yeah, but you were one weird child.
Hey, I had my own paranormal instances as a child. The podcast audience probably will never hear. Moving on, Sprinks.
Oh boy, man, you Dropped a bomb with that one.
Only one experience.
We get introduced to Father Calloway, who I recognize. That's actor Philip Baker Hall. I know him from a bunch of Jim Carrey movies. And I don't know why he gets paired with Jim Carrey in a lot of stuff.
I recognize him from Truman Show.
Of Jim Carrey's natural personality, or his.
He's in Truman Show. He's in Mr. Popper's Penguins. He's in Bruce Almighty.
I'm looking at it right now. Oh, he's in Rock. Oh yeah, he's like one of the strategist guys. Whatever. But also I've seen Rock.
People would know him from Zodiac, Rush Hour. I think those.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He's known.
Yeah. But I guess of the time, did they have yard debris disposal in the 70s? Because they're burning all the leaves.
No idea. Can't help you there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Can't help you there. Not my specialty when it comes to history, as it turns out.
Okay. Like the burning the leaves, I didn't think was too odd. Like I find it totally believable. It just made me question.
Yeah, kind of the same way. I found it as interesting, but I didn't look into it. My bit with the Father Calloway, is he brought up the house, the house or whatever, but at that point he didn't know. He didn't know her, so he didn't know what house she was in. And then she brings up the DeFeos, and I live in that house. It's like, oh my gosh. It seemed very weak, the integration of this character and his knowledge of the previous owners. But she could have just opened up being, I'm having issues with my house that I just got, the DeFeos, that family. And he's like, oh yeah.
Do you think this is a part of the adaptation they should have had more time with to strengthen him? Rather than just kind of like maybe a couple bits of real life events that they knew of?
This is a difference. I don't know how relevant the priest is in the book. I didn't get too much on that one, but the priest is far more prevalent in the 79 movie. I know that one's quite different. So I do think building up the priest more in this would be better. A little bit. I don't think he needs to be a big player in it, but a little bit more would be, I think, welcome.
Okay.
I guess you guys, do you think that his integration's fine or lacking?
I think it's okay because he gets scared off. And he does give an answer to Kathy of like, I was scared.
Yeah, I think his integration is okay. I'm not sure what more I would want him to do and how small this script is for an 1.5-hour movie. I don't know what I would add for him.
I'd want his presence to be more if Kathy was smarter.
Yeah, if Kathy was smarter, or if George
more knowledgeable about the events,
or if George left the house to just kind of complain that he feels so like locked in and weird at the house, like he feels every time he goes there like something's falling apart. So even any interaction, if any of the Lutzes left the house of their own volition and were smarter, I would like his integration more, I guess, with that.
Could you elaborate on if she was smarter part?
Yeah, if Kathy knew about the events and then the situation of like the 28 days and everything, rather than on the 28th day, unless that's sticking to the book and the real life events of when she knew, because I don't want an adaptation to go so vastly to change that. Just like if she knew that prior, then get like a priest in and then maybe ask more priests or a circle, like how to exercise, the entity or whatever's going on in the house. The reverend, because she gets to that part of reading about it. Historians maybe go to the realtor who sold the house and any info she knows more about, like just more exploration of that, of what's going on locally in the town of the events, rather than just George who's losing his mind and she's like very kind of like a bit hopeless on it at points.
I feel like that would kind of derail the presence of the movie being mostly house centric. And the kind of what you described actually feels like The Changeling when he went around investigating the house's history.
Well, not to go to like where's the necklace, go to the well, go to like the changeling and all that, like other thing, just like bring people to the house to help the house.
I feel like that would just kind of be filler because we kind of get all the info we already need from the newspapers or the priest. I don't know what the realtor would have to say that everything else hasn't already conveyed. It'd have to be some newer stuff, I think.
Yeah, that's
or if she goes to the prison to talk to Ronnie or something, maybe.
And then Ronnie could.
I think that would be
priest.
something.
Yeah.
Do you think the events of what happened to the priest in the room would have happened if he was not alone?
Probably not. I don't know.
Maybe. It kind of depends. Like, if it was George in there, I think that it still would have happened. But,
yes. Yeah. Would it go into events like no one's going to believe you on your own kind of thing?
I mean,
like
it could have been...
were there and nothing happened, then it's like, oh, nothing happened, your house is totally fine. Opposed to one, it's like, oh, yeah, you're just seeing things or choosing to believe to scare or whatnot.
Like, if he was in the room with the kids, maybe it was just the voices he could hear, but the kids couldn't hear. Like, get out, get out. Because according to him, he didn't believe Ronnie about the voices, but if it was just the voices and not the flies, that might be enough for him to leave because he knows the severity of the voices. So maybe they would go that route if kids were around. I don't know.
This movie was rated R, right?
I did not check ratings.
Yeah.
It probably is.
It had multiple F-bombs.
Yeah, it's rated R.
Okay. I feel like they could have had more scare. I honestly thought when the flies attacked, I thought the flies were crawling into his eyeballs. I'm like, that would have been ghastly, like, looking.
Another thing that's different between all the versions, in the original book or whatever, the priest, every time he went into the house, fell ill until he eventually stopped coming and just left. In the 79 film is when the flies got introduced and the priest got blinded by the flies. And in this, we just have the priest got attacked by flies and left.
Okay. I won't judge it for the movie overall, but those two other versions sound better.
Yeah. I think this is the weakest of the three, but in isolation, it's okay. It's not great. Definitely could be better.
I will say, I guess I do like the use of flies as symbolism for a demonic presence. That's also classic.
The original story did have like phantom flies that appeared, but it had no relation to the priest, so that's just their way of referencing it, I'm guessing. Just making it more of a thing.
I had a stupid thought of I quickly changed it, and I'm like, that's too far and dumb. Being the priest came with like his own briefcase and bag and like all this stuff. I went, why did he change out the doorknob to put a cross on it?
You don't think the cross was on the doorknob already?
No, my first thought was he changed out the doorknob to make the room more a holy presence. And then went, no, that's stupid. It was there the whole time. And then I went, okay, it's kind of dumb just for the shot of the doorknob turning the cross upside down. And I'm like, but he chose the one room with a cross doorknob.
Well, we don't know that.
The only doorknob.
We don't know if it's the only one, but
yeah, the only doorknob other doorknob we see is the one in the closet. When the
we also see the front door.
And the front door, I guess, yeah. But there could be other ones in there with the cross on it, but we don't.
It made it slightly feel like a movie moment to me. Like it's for the shot.
It is for the shot.
That doorknob was for that upside down cross shot.
Oh yeah, you won't hear me dispute that. Definitely for the shot. Another little note. I like that after George has his freak out in the bath after nearly being killed or whatever, I like that they immediately go to see a doctor the next day. Supposedly the next
I
day.
thought that was
Yeah.
smart. That's something.
Yeah.
Get a checkup.
Yeah, like I said, I think Kathy's. I wish her progression I think would be faster because I think they would communicate more about what's going on outside of the house as well. But I do like that Kathy's not just sitting on the sidelines letting all this take place. Like she can clearly tell something's wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to judge because they are kind of tied with sticking it to a true story of the Lutzes left on the 28th day and left their belongings. Like the final thing at the end of the movie says that is what happened. They left on day 28 and left all their stuff. So this movie has to figure out what happened in the 28 days and pace it believably. So I guess that would come down to us on believability.
I would love to see Michael Flanagan write a mini series for the Amityville horror story.
Yeah, mini series would be interesting.
For those who don't know, Michael Flanagan wrote Bly Manor, Haunting of Hill House, and the Fall of Usher. Very, very one of my favorite horror writers out there because it's very, very character focused, and that's what I'm about. So.
Yeah, this seems right up his alley, actually. I think that would be good.
A haunted house.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, see Mike Flanagan's rendition of Monster House. That would be something.
I don't think it would be better. I think Monster House is pretty darn perfect.
I don't think it'll be a children's story.
Let's see. Billy holding the wood for George to cut, I think, is a pretty good scene. The thing that took me out a little bit was him like hugging it, where his head's right next to it. He didn't have to do that to hold the wood. And this was on the second shot, I think. That's when he's pretty much hugging it. But other than that, it felt intimidating. I believed the tears.
George grabbing his cheeks was that I liked.
Ooh,
yeah,
that
intensity.
So unsettling and intense. Yeah.
You really feel like Billy has no choice in anything. He has to do this.
Yeah. Is this after his dog is dead too?
No.
This is before. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is still punishment phase.
Yeah, you definitely get the impression that George is gradually at least from the perspective of the children up until they realize something's fucking wrong.
Well, prior with the scene with Michael of the torture device, just saying, "Hey, don't go there," and then hugging him, "I'm sorry." This huge escalation.
Well, it's the first time not Billy, George has been physical in a negative fashion.
Yeah, because he's been. He's mostly just hugging and being.
He's been verbally abusive, but he's never physically been abusive in any way.
The closest you get to for Billy is George does make him do physical labor, so he's obviously out there cutting up firewood in order to help to try and warm up the basement because he's constantly fucking freezing his ass off.
And the display of acting is good with the fact Crimson brought up at the beginning of that Ryan was distant with the kids.
Yep.
I think that sells this a little more.
It sells it a little bit more. Again, makes me feel a little bit bad for the child actors, but I think it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Billy's head, he goes, "Ryan doesn't like me." It just really sells it.
And then eye to eye with him right there. Some of that was probably real emotion there.
Yeah. Ryan, I feel like he would have apologized after that at least once.
Oh, yeah, it's probably like Bill Skarsgård during It. Every scene he did, he'd like check up on the kids.
All right, Sprinks, I think you're up.
I think I only have one last point of this act. I was curious, do they lock Harry in the boathouse at night?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so it was just the night of his death occurrence kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's to obviously parallel the death of Ronnie's dog and to show the escalation of George. So, think the ghost opened the doors for the dog.
On the first night when he sees Bubbles, you mean?
No, at the end where he kills the dog, Harry. George
Harry's
hears
in
the
the
barking
boathouse.
coming from the boathouse,
Oh.
which made me question: do they lock Harry in the boathouse at night?
The ghost, the house might, but I don't think the dog. I don't think they lock the dog in there.
Because the dog could just jump in the water and swim out. That's you can't really lock the dog.
That after the death, George still hears the barking. Do you think it was like a ghostly portrayal of the barks, and Harry wasn't in the house at all?
I think the barks he hears are Ronnie's dog. Until he kills Harry. Like once it's Harry running into the room. Because obviously the parts where we see it is Harry, but up until him getting there, I think that's Ronnie's dog.
Okay, so Ronnie's dog barking him, drawing him in.
Yeah,
he goes into the boathouse. The boathouse is unlocked for Harry to get in. Harry gets in behind George, and the ghost like portrays itself, which is the first hit for George to hit Harry.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the next night when he falls on the deck and hearing it, that's Harry's barking.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how I read the scene, because Harry was not in the house when George first arrived, so I took it that's the house playing Ronnie's dog, or the house playing tricks, even though tricks are for kids.
Yeah,
I like that the ghostly presence doesn't. It uses what it has on hand. And that Ronnie's dog's already dead, so that's what can be portrayed and used. And it's not like making a new noise like a dog to indicate Harry.
Yeah,
I like that.
It just comes down to this ghost again. It's the same one from the bathroom, and I don't know what it's doing. It's one of the Indians that died in the dungeon, and I don't know what it's doing.
It tried to scare Michael and failed. It tried to scare George, which I guess succeeded since he took the axe to it.
Well, George could see it, because we don't really get the impression that Michael saw it.
Well, yeah, but George saw it, and then it wasn't there because it was Harry the dog. So he saw it for a bit. It's also like when he's watching the family videos, he sees instances in the video.
Yeah.
Which is also like he records back, which to me displayed that it was actually a physical manifestation that was picked up on film, since it reoccurred when he rewinded it.
It's possible, but it could just still be his mind perceiving it, even on the rewind.
Because the implication is that Ronnie saw them as well, right? The idea that those demonic faces were over...
Well, he only saw the Indian. Or whatever else. He could have seen the Reverend and whatnot, but he wouldn't have seen Jody or anyone he killed.
What I meant is that when the story talks about Ronnie, about how he saw demons in his family and the voices were telling him to kill his family, I assume we're supposed to draw parallels to that story to this, which he is starting to see demons in his family. So it could be the influence, but it also could be the demon just literally putting a demon over their face. Because I don't think it was the film. I think it's either direct influence on him or the demons physically just making the face for him, because we see it later on with Kathy.
I agree. Because I don't think, like, if Kathy or the kids saw the video, that the demon face would be there. I don't think it would be there. What do you think, Sprinks?
So you mean if they were in the room watching it with George, or if they watched it without George?
If they, I mean, either to me.
So just their point of view, like if they watched it,
you think they would see the demon face, whether or not they're with him or not? I don't think really changes anything.
I don't know. At this point in the movie, I don't know. If it was earlier, like he just filmed it on day one or whatever, and then like played it back to show them, no, I don't think they would have seen it at all. George probably still would have, but no. At this point, later down the line, I don't know if they could or not because they've seen other events.
George
Like
continues
Jody's-
to see these faces with Kathy and
Yes, but more of a
Billy.
presence is going around the whole family.
Well, none of the family members see these demon faces.
Well, no, but they get ghostly activities that are affecting them, which to me draws them closer that they could see it.
We know the demon
Some of them
faces is tied to the killer, being Ronnie.
Okay,
That's
this
directly
is
tied to him.
okay. I see the blockage we're at. I think you're on the demon faces are specifically showing to George in the instance for George of the progression that he is at that one character, versus how I see it of like a progression level of every family member of where they are being near ghostly presence and what they're not akin to, but what they're what's the right word? Being experienced to, I guess.
Acclimated with. We don't see any of the family members see the demon faces though, so I don't. They're in the house just as long as George. They would still have the same exposure to the house, but George and Ronnie are targeted.
They're targeted.
Are different. Yeah. So they have different experiences than the family.
Yeah,
and
I think
demon faces seems to be strictly connected with them because no one else gets it.
But the question you pitched, I think out of the list, Billy would be at the bottom because I think he's experienced the least. I think Chelsea and Kathy probably could. I'm leaning like 60%. Maybe Michael's the big iffy for me. But I don't know.
I wouldn't have issues if they could see the faces, but we don't really get anything as to them actually being able to see the faces, which I guess is my only takeaway on that.
All right. Are we good to jump to another point?
Sure.
Yeah.
The finger in the bullet hole in the forehead. I like it. I like that it's not just putting her finger in her head, it's actually her shooting her in the head. Add more traumatizing scarring to Lisa. Did we find out what Lisa got fired from? Because she said she got fired because of Jody, but I don't remember if there was a reason why she got fired.
I don't think there was any reason given, other than that she says she was a terrible babysitter, and she and Jody didn't get along.
Okay. Didn't know if I just forgot or missed something.
There's not really much. I'm inferring the fact they didn't get along.
Well, yeah, Lisa said Jody got her fired for babysitting. Jody wrote on the Etch-a-Sketch, or told Chelsea to write on the Etch-a-Sketch, hate her, and then all the events in the closet. So there was definitely some beef between the two. We just don't really have anything for it. Anything. But we get to see the bloody wall written with kill 'em and stuff, tying
Catch
it to
'em,
the
kill 'em.
magnets. Yeah. Add more context for it. Yeah, I liked it.
The visual I think was good and fine. The reused gunshot I was getting annoyed with.
What do you mean?
The sound effect of the gunshot, that was about, I don't know, the 14th time it was used. It's the same sound effect each time. It's not a variation or a reverb or an echo or something to differentiate it. It's the same one played multiple times of the same sound.
Yeah.
Which is why I was okay with it with Ronnie, because it's showing like a past event thing when he's shooting the whole family, even though each room's a different size and would sound different. Each gunshot was the same noise. So then here it's like, I guess it only conveys... If it was different for Ronnie, it's referencing to Jody's death of the noise that killed her. So the repeat of that one noise is fine, but it is the exact same noise for single gunshot that's been used.
I guess I'm in agreement. They do reuse a lot of audio cues in this. They reuse the fucking jump scare one, but a lot of horror reuses it, and I get annoyed by it. I think the opportunity to show something new might have been during George's dream sequence where he offs himself.
Yes.
That would be...
That one's different because that's a shotgun from the rifle.
Yeah. Well, I said that... Is it a new sound effect? Or I felt like that shouldn't...
In the dream, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's the same sound effect.
Okay. Then...
Later on, when he's actually firing in third act, those are different.
Yeah. I feel like that the dream sequence one would have been the time to add in a different gun sound effect. If that's what was bugging you, Springs.
Yeah. I think it would have been cool if, because it was in the closet, Jodie's sound effect when she got shot by Ronnie, when it cut to black before going, 1 year later, was a different audio cue of a gunshot. And then when the finger went into her bullet hole, that's the sound that replayed because that's the sound that killed Jodie. I think that would have fit a lot nicer.
I don't have that many. I don't have a strong feeling on this one, so I got nothing more to add.
Yeah, it's staying out as much of an issue, but whenever I see the opening sequence again, I'm going to listen if it is the same shot every single time.
Based on my layman's knowledge of having only seen it once, I think it is, but I haven't rewatched it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning. I think it is too, but I would like to actually pay attention. Listening.
I thought it was. So the creativeness is that they use the gunshot to go with the clips of the beds and the murders that kind of connected it to the sounding like a photo was being taken.
Mm-hmm.
But it was still the same shot. Or the same noise.
Yeah. What do you guys think that Kathy was thinking when Chelsea was explaining how Jodie said the man in the house makes her do bad things or whatever, or does bad things to her? What do you think Kathy was thinking at that point?
Ooh.
Because
parental question.
I was thinking she was starting to question if George was being a bit too close to Chelsea. Get what I'm leaving there, but I don't feel like they actually explored that past this scene. So, what do you guys think she was thinking here?
Interesting. Never picked up what you just implied.
This is after he tells the boys to run upstairs, right?
Yeah, this is after that.
This is directly after that?
Not right after. No. This is after
this
Chelsea
is after the babysitter
gets down off the roof. Right?
Oh, this is
after
the babysitter?
Yeah, this is after the babysitter.
Crimson, the scene you're talking about when Chelsea's talking to Kathy, and then George comes up and goes, "What is wrong with you, wacko family?" and walks away.
I think it is. Maybe. In the sequence of my notes, it's the babysitter dead speech on the stairs, and then she goes upstairs to talk to her about what happened with the babysitter. So that's the scene.
I didn't get that at all. I got explicitly that she thinks George is just being mean.
Is this when she's in bed with Chelsea to like comfort her, and Chelsea says that Jodie thinks George is being a bad man? You're a good mommy.
She didn't say George is a bad man. She said
the
man in the house has done bad things or something along the lines.
Yeah, it's
definitely
it's a vague statement that could have been read into some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, I don't think it's. I don't think it's related to George at all. I think it's related to the Reverend.
Oh, I'm talking about how Kathy understood it. I agree. That's what Chelsea and.
I think Kathy can read that into it, but I think since this is right off of her, George being more verbally abusive to the boys, I think that that's what's forefront of her mind. I don't think she went there. I can agree that it's a potential. I don't think she went there though.
I was just curious because I wasn't sure myself. It was vague enough to be open.
I think it's a possibility, but she never changes her approach towards George after that.
Yeah. I would have issues if that was her takeaway and she didn't change her behavior much towards George after that. I think that would have been...
She watches him more after this talk, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Looking at him through the windows and stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think that I would take a lot more issues with that, because that's a conversation she would have had with George directly. Because their relationship is typically they communicate everything together, communicate as much as possible, at least from her end, because she's not as under the influence of the house. That's very much something she would have talked to him about immediately. So I lean no, because I think it's more damaging to the film. If that is what we're supposed to take away, but I do think there's enough. I think there's enough there for Kathy to start feeling suspicious towards George because of what she just saw and how he treated her boys.
Okay, that was my final note for this act. Ryder, you have anything else for this one?
Let's see. I think the only other one I got is the jump scare to Kathy after the priest runs away. It's cheap, where George is just hugging her.
Oh,
it's cheap, but
yeah.
It's cheap. He teleported, but it works, I think, in the sense that George, in a way, is representing the house. You can obviously see the way he's happy that the priest is driving away in fear.
I agree. It fits within the film, but cheap.
All right.
On to Act 3.
Yeah.
Dead Harry to the end of the film.
Harry,
we'll go with Sprinks again.
Okay. Slight apologies that the Father Calloway scene with the flies was in this act. Oops.
That doesn't matter. Oh well.
I'll go on a scene that reminded me of Friday the 13th, the series, when Kathy is talking to Father Calloway about the doll, and he goes, Jody was buried with that doll, and it zooms in on him and then zooms in on Kathy. Felt real like
classic
horror TV show
reveal. Yeah.
Real cheesy.
Yep. I funny enough, that one didn't bother me that much. At least because Kathy has been quote unquote the sane one, so that kind of feels a little bit earned, and the doll has had an interesting story in the film. I thought they kind of earned that particular cheese.
But it was a dun 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 moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't die.
It was a mic drop moment.
It was absolutely a moment like that. I felt like they had earned their cheese for this moment, though.
I agree with the comparison. It did feel like a TV show scary reveal.
Ooh. You okay? Yeah, the jump rope was choking me to death. Dun dun dun.
No way.
I will start out with, I really like the PTSD that George has over what happened. With the dog.
With the dog.
Yeah, with the dog.
Yeah.
The way it just opens up with him just looking at his hands and he's shaking.
Oh.
Because he's not sure if it's real or not. But he knows deep down that it is. Or at least that's the kind of part of the implication I would have got. I get a lot more PTSD than I do from that read. But
I agree. He's definitely shook by it. And it does get confirmed when Billy and Michael are like, I can't find Harry.
Yeah.
But then he kind of stiffens up after that and gets in mean mode.
Yeah. Because I like the argument that he has with Kathy, because Kathy at this point wants to leave. And the house has its claws in him, shall we say.
It does. Let's see. Something that bothers me is the fact that Jody is a ghost. Why is she a ghost and not the rest of the family? Where's the brothers? Where's the mom and dad that got murdered? Where are they?
Good question.
Why is
Next
she
question. No idea.
I don't know.
Something they did not explain. And they really should have.
There's a lot of things that they haven't explained, honestly.
Yeah, because usually ghosts are like, oh, they have unfinished business on this plane of existence that they got to deal with before they can move on. But what does she have that the family doesn't have? Nothing. Other than she saw him kill her, which the family members didn't see. That's the only difference between her and them.
I like the detail of the holy water sizzling, or whatever he's spraying onto the
Yeah,
ground.
but he didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, that to me
He
was
wasn't
a
looking
little...
at it.
He was more worried about the flies buzzing.
Yeah, and he knew this house was evil anyways, so...
Maybe he wasn't surprised to hear this. Yep, it's still evil.
Yeah, bad place. Let's see. Sprinks.
That's me. What made Kathy turn on Billy when he questioned where Harry was?
Kathy turn on Billy.
When
with the
after-
implication. So
when George is like saying "shut up," and he goes, "Where's Harry?" He wouldn't run away, and then Kathy turns on Billy aggressively.
she knows what Billy's implying. She's implying that George did something to Harry. Either took him away from the house, or sent him to the vet, or killed him. Whatever you'd want to read into it, but Billy's implying that Harry didn't get away. Yeah, and George is at fault. So she's not liking that.
Yeah.
So she's defending George.
She's playing mediator. I wouldn't say she's defending George right now.
Yeah, she doesn't have any information other than the dog's missing.
She knows her husband's... The read of this is that she knows her husband's going through a really bad time of it. She does not need Billy to make it worse. Because Billy was indirectly the cause of what happened to the babysitter. And in her mind, as far as she knows, they're responsible for what happened with the keys. But so there's reason for her to defend George here to a degree. Like it's not a like turning on Billy. Like she doesn't, start laying into him. But it clearly just ends that conversation before it can escalate. So I think turning on Billy is a little too strong of an implication.
Well, what do you think, Springs? You opposed it?
I did. Sorry, what Ryder said kind of just confused me because he said, Ryder, you said she wasn't defending George, and then you said she went to defend George.
I was giving you alternate viewpoints. Yeah.
Alternate. Okay.
Yeah. So it can be perceived as she's defending George, but I don't think that's the intent. I think she's just trying to de-escalate because she recognizes what Billy is doing, which is trying to accuse George, and she's accomplishing multiple things too, I would say, with that. I don't think she's turning on Billy. I think she's just de-escalating because she knows what Billy's trying to do.
Okay. I took it as the house is getting to her.
It could be, but the house is very hands-off with Kathy. It feels mostly. She's not the direct one that's being fucked with right now.
I got a gun question because I'm not super knowledgeable on guns. Can you just repeatedly pump a shotgun, or
Great
is
question.
that like a one and done?
Yes and no.
Until you fire.
Yes and no.
You can, but it shoots out the shell. So a loaded shell fell out when he repumped it.
Okay.
Because I caught that too. He pumped it, never fired, and pumps it again.
Yeah, going up the stairs. Okay. I was curious because I didn't know the answer to that.
I missed the extra pump. Good catch.
Yeah, he pumped it when the door opened, and he was standing there menacingly, and I'd say that was a pretty cool looking shot.
It was a good shot.
Me.
Yeah.
But yeah, he pumped it there, and then he pumped it again going up the stairs chasing him. There was a camera thing that I think wasn't great. I usually don't point out bad camera stuff because I think it's usually pretty safe. But on the roof, when Billy hits George and he starts to slide off the roof, we get this really artificial, shaky cam thing that's like an earthquake effect. Yeah. It's very subtle. It's not too overt, but it's present, and it does not mesh well. And that's at timestamp hour 16:07. Just not great, not well integrated.
I do appreciate the parts where Billy's trying to help his mom or contribute to saving the family because he's the eldest child. I do appreciate those little nuggets laid throughout here.
Yeah, I do think Billy gets better as a character the more the movie goes, which I think is their intent. So good on them for that. Because I guess indirectly they justify his disdain for George, even though it's not real George.
Yeah.
Throughout this movie.
It's one of those things where this is part of why what affected my rating so far post seeing the movie and thinking about it. There's a lot of stuff with the inter-family dynamic relationship stuff that they don't pay off at all. I do think it's a bit. This is going to go right to the end, but it's weird that we just get nothing from the family as they drive off.
Yeah, no true conclusion about like what does the family look like now after all of that.
Yeah, this is why I had to think about this a lot. I think it is an objective problem. They do spend a fair bit of time in the film setting up the inter-family dynamic and their relationships before things start getting strained. We already know the awkward tensions between George having to be the new a new father figure, but we get no resolution with that, and I think that is a problem with the film.
Mm-hmm. Is it an objective issue? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's okay letting the viewers decide based off of what's played in front of us on how we think the characters will go forth. I don't know if it's required. That's what I'm on.
Yeah. My issue for
think?
requirement is because they set it all up, that they did nothing with it. It's kind of in the same
Well,
way it's
you could argue they set up for you to infer yourself, right?
Not really. I don't think they do enough for me to infer what happened to the family afterwards, other than they left the house and never came back. I can't really infer beyond their dynamics. I don't know if Billy kept hating George. I don't know if they ever, resolved their family dynamic issues. I don't know if, I don't know. I can't really, like I said, I don't have enough information to infer. Maybe that's just because I saw it once, but that's what I'm basing my objective on right now, is the fact that I've only seen this once.
What do you think, Sprinks?
I slightly lost it. If you're talking about that shot, never caught it.
Okay. No, we had an entire different conversation of the ending and how it doesn't have a conclusion with the family dynamics. Writer thinks they set it up without payoff. Like, does Billy still hate George? What?
Oh,
do they still stay together at the end? What's all that?
I think it's fine. To me, the story is more on the house and not the people.
I don't know if that's a good enough reason for me to not make it objective.
I just don't know if it's required. Is what I'm.
I don't have. Granted, I will say this right now. My objective scale here is based on my one-time viewing it. So maybe they're on another rewatch. I'll have information to infer what happens to the family. So therefore, it would diminish the requirement aspect. But for right now, I've got nothing. I already laid out several questions for what the dynamic with Billy would be between George going outside of the house. Billy might hate him more. I don't know if they ever resolve their issues like a year later. Whether what the family reaction was to Kathy explaining what happened to George because they questioned it as they were trying to save him. Like, why are we saving him? I can infer some of this. I can't infer all of it, and I can't infer enough of it. So that's why I have issues with it objectively right now.
Does George ever say he killed Harry?
I don't have any objective of that issue because to me that's a story not needed.
Yeah, that ties into the requirement thing that I brought up.
Yeah, which is just the easiest difference between your viewing and my viewing.
Yeah, and it's like I said, this one's a weird one for me because I admit to being on the fence about it, but right now I'm actually leaning towards the negative, and which does change my scale by quite a bit, given what we talked about before we started recording. Not changing my scale, but change my rating on the scale. So it's out there.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to convert you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's required, so that's my stance on it.
Yeah. Because most of my scale is based around character, and while I can consider the house a bit of a character in this film, the film chose to make all these setups with this dynamic that they did not pay off by the end. And I don't think there is enough for me to infer how the conclusion was, because they took effort to make us try to care about these characters enough for what they're going to go through. And I don't think I got enough for the end. So yeah, that's where I'm leaning. I figured that would be the controversial point that we can elaborate on, probably during a recap, if you so choose.
If anyone remembers to bring it up.
Yeah. So that's for me is I think going to be where I diverge from where you guys sit on the film.
Okay. Something I imagine a lot of us would probably agree with is this Jody ending not being anything relevant or good. I would darn say it's bad. This random shot of Jody standing alone in the house, screaming, crying, and getting sucked into the floor. What on earth is that?
I think that, I'm going to be honest, I legitimately think the only reason Jody did that shot is just to justify us following the camera back to the house to see it reset itself.
Yeah, I would have been fine with just seeing the reset. This isn't even a conclusion for Jody because I don't know what happened.
Yeah. I also don't know enough about Jody's character to know what happened, so
I got nothing. All I can get is, she's sad her friend's gone. I don't know if that's all of it either. What do you think, Sprinks?
I had it simply as it's just a means to show the doll is still in the house. That Chelsea didn't take it with her.
Oh, specifically the doll. All right, that's fair.
Well, what happened to Jody?
The Reverend got her.
Why didn't he nab her the entire year?
I don't know. It's never explained the whole movie.
Well, that's what I'm getting at of it being bad, because there is nothing.
It's poorly done trying to give Jody a character without any explanation to her character.
Yep.
I'll go with that.
What do we think about the intercutting between Kathy getting the reveal and George breaking into the cellar or the torture chambers? If that's him actually physically walking through it. Because I feel like it's half dream, obviously, and half...
Yeah, that was a little tricky. We see them go into the secret room, but it's not this long corridor dungeon area. It's this just smaller room with the coffins. So I think that was all in his mind, the dungeon stuff. He just found a secret room that was like a normal, smaller room.
Mm-hmm.
Which is in line with the true story. There was a hidden room that was it was small. It was smaller than what we see in this movie, but there was a hidden room involved.
And that's from the book?
Yep. And in the other movie as well.
Okay, well, the movie's a reference. Okay, to the book, then yeah, it's a small room and the rest is a dream.
Okay. Well, I'm just going visually off this own movie itself as well. You don't get to see the corridor once Chelsea and...
I'll explain this to you guys in the audience in case it needs to be clarified. I if this was not based on a true story, I would not constantly keep bringing up the book or 79 movie or all that. Being that it is, I am trying to cement what is historically accurately depicted of real in this film. So if the book written for the real events of what occurred in 74 during the events of Ronnie Jr. and whatnot, there was a small room, then I'm going with this adaptation of 2005 that it was a small room, and being that's what's shown is a daydream sequence of George.
And I'm just trying to relay the information of what's real and what's not. The Reverend stuff isn't in the book. So that is something they could have changed for this movie. The corridor thing could have been in this movie, and they just elaborated the small real room into this whole corridor thing. So that's what I'm trying to clarify. Things could be exaggerated, things could not be exaggerated. I don't think it's exaggerated because we get to see the coffin room being enclosed. Writer.
I don't think anyone answered my question, or I don't think you did, Crimson.
Oh.
What did you think about the intercutting between?
Oh, that's right. That was the origin of the song. I think it's pretty standard. Pairing two Revelation scenes back and forth.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I don't have issues with it. I think it wasn't exceptional in its execution.
It wasn't groundbreaking. It just accomplishes its job.
Did its part. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't really have much to add on it. I think some of the jump cuts, the jump flash cuts started to kind of annoy me a little bit with intercutting between, I guess, what she was reading and what George was seeing or experiencing in his daydream haze. But it was just a minor annoyance. I think it works otherwise.
There was a lot of cuts. I don't know if it was too many cuts, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Springs.
When George is going down that daydream cellar thing, I noticed a slight goof of the basement he's in is like orangely kind of lit, kind of like daytime. And when he enters it, what we see of the entrance behind him is now turned into the blue lighting from everything else of the basement. So there's a lighting color change behind him in like 2 shots.
Yes.
Yeah, I can picture that. I remember that. Yeah, which another deviation. The room's supposed to be red. That's not in this movie. But
the room's supposed to be red. Interesting.
Yeah, so little deviation. The Reverend, I think it was a kind of cool reveal, seeing the door open and him standing there kind of menacingly in the middle of a room.
Yeah, and then it's
such a throat.
Yeah. The idea is or at least the implication to me was like that was his ritual to kind of preserve his soul as Kathy was reading it or whatever when he shanks himself.
The only thing that ties to the true events with any of this Reverend Indian stuff is there was an Indian tragedy in the area. No Reverend. This particular one, I forgot what his name. What's his full
Jeremiah.
name? We'll go with Jeremiah. He's tied to the witch trials, which is nothing they touch on in this movie. They kind of just take the name and repurpose it for this movie. So
interesting.
Some creative liberties with this Reverend character.
I'll just have to say it because it's a tiny thing. It's a little convenient that Kathy's figuring all this out while George is like finally being fully possessed.
George is definitely playing with his food, which is something that Ronnie didn't do. Because there's a lot of times where George could just shoot them in the house.
Oh yeah,
but he's
absolutely.
Walking around.
When they block the door,
menacingly.
I'm like, he could just shotgun you.
Shoot through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's just George having the willpower to not completely succumb to the possession or
That would be
whatever.
Cool. I would love it if that were true.
I mean, that's what I have to go with because it's very different from Ronnie.
Yeah.
Ronnie just let loose and killed everybody. Here, he has so many opportunities to do it, but never takes it. Something I thought was cheap and I would prefer to remove is the fake out death of Kathy. Very cheap and quite lazy to me. Of her going to get a rope to tie him up and he axes her in the gut and like, oh my gosh, she's dead. Cut to him on the ground, getting a vision of killing her while on the ground.
Yeah, I think honestly him begging for her to kill him before he loses control again or gets taken over again, I think it's strong enough, you know.
I agree. What about you, Springs?
Yeah, a little Breaking Dawn Part 2 stitch.
Just a tiny bit. Well, at least we didn't lose character development in this one.
Yeah, she still does get the rope afterwards, so she does stick with that.
I would ask, I personally didn't like this scene. The scene I want to remove is the scene where she walks into the boathouse and just falls in because he shined a light in her face.
The only thing I can think of is they had to set up why the keys were in the boat for the escape, and that's why the scene is here. I think that is literally the reason. And I think it's dumb.
Yeah, it was very unnecessary. I think they could have just grabbed the keys at some point, or maybe the house was pretending Billy stole them again, and Billy could remember that this time that he did have them. Or there were many other ways they could get around the idea of how they could get a hold of the keys. But yeah, that scene just bugged me because they nearly killed Kathy there again, just for the sake of it.
And did he turn off the rotor, or did it just get jammed by her hair?
It got jammed by her hair, and then he reversed it.
Interesting. I don't know how strong boat rotors are, but I feel like that wouldn't do anything. Because you got to cut through seaweed in the water and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think. I think she's dead. This would be a case of plot armor.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the boathouse scene, Springs?
I think it's just another scare tactic added in this horror movie of a whole scene to depict the key thing. Just like, oh no, she's gonna die, and oh no, George is going crazy, and oh, he's breaking it, and just more scare aspect.
We need more events for the climax. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
could even be foreshadowing.
I mean, it is setting up the boat, so it is doing some level.
I mean, that seeing Kathy is what's breaking him out of his trance.
Oh, like seeing her almost die, it's like a nick on him or something?
Because that's what makes him stop the boat and free her.
I suppose, yeah. His love for her is stronger than Ronnie's love for his family. Yes. How's notes looking?
Honestly, most of my stuff here at the end is just kind of just making sure we run through everything we need to. I don't really have any I got my big ones out. I don't got anything else much to add.
All right, Springs, you said you got a couple. Let's hear it.
I found it convenient that Kathy found the gun and the wet rain.
Yeah, that was a little.
Yeah, definitely an element of luck for that.
Where did the gun fall? Like, didn't it fall with him on the same side of the house? Yeah. Didn't it fall with him on the same side of the house, though?
Yeah, he ignored it and went for the axe.
I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember seeing the gun roll down the roof with him.
No, it was separate from him.
Okay, so it wasn't. I thought it rolled down the same direction with him. If it didn't,
Oh,
then
I think it did fall the same direction. Just
it didn't land
before
next
he
to
did.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then yeah, it's lucky the gun just teleported into her hand.
Yeah, definitely convenient.
Maybe this is where all the disappearing guns and weapons go. In other movies, they just appear in other ones like this.
Oh, perhaps. It's Gort's house from Halloween Town 2.
Oh, yeah.
All the things go.
At an hour, 18 minutes, 58 seconds, the High Hope sign outside the house, is that a reused shot from the beginning of the movie?
I don't.
It could
Well, I mean,
be.
the lighting's different. I think the sign moves differently, though. So.
Oh, yeah.
Does it?
I don't.
Yeah, I think he's right. The sign does move differently. I would have agreed, Springs. They could have just unfiltered the initial previous shot, but I don't think so. I think.
I mean, they could have just done a long established shot and then just cut it into two pieces, one in the beginning, one in the other.
They could.
So it would
I just
technically
thought it
be
lined
the
up.
same shot. It's just cut up
I
different.
thought it lined up when it swung forward with the lightning that shined to be able to read the sign. I thought that was the same.
It is checkable, but I'm not 100%, so I'm not going to say definitively it's different, but I think it was.
Okay.
I cannot fill my soul to say that it is or is not.
Yeah. The last point I have in a question, because I think it happened 3 or 4 times. Did anyone think the chandelier was going to do something?
I had a feeling you were going to bring up the chandelier, because yeah, you're right. They focus on it like 3 solid times that I could think of. Like when the door's locked and they're trying to get out, and then they look. We see the chandelier shaking, like, oh, it's going to fall on him or something. And then,
yeah.
Nothing.
And it points to the chandelier, I think, right after the babysitter gets taken away.
Yeah. It's a girl house. I don't know.
I only noticed the chandelier stuff when I was collecting screenshots. But it does feel a little weird. They show it a bunch of times and don't do anything with it. Just a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't know if it's their use of transition.
Could we call that a setup without payoff?
I think perhaps. I think the other times are fine, but yeah, the time where they're running and the door's locked and then looking at it like it is going to be relevant, I feel like that might actually break the pace of it because it's not relevant.
It's just shown multiple times and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I agree. So we see George in the boathouse revert back to normal. His eyes are clear. We get the flashes of the blood reversing off of him in the reference scene and a bunch of happy flashes. He's back to normal. I don't know why, though, because he's still on the property.
She hit him really hard with the butt of her gun. I genuinely fucking have no idea.
She knocked the demon out of him.
Yeah, especially since we get the exhale later on when he's on the boat. You know?
Yeah, like, okay, now he's back, but he was already back.
Yeah, like he was already starting to revert back. It was a little weird.
Okay, you're all saying different things. I'm with Ryder that he's starting to revert. I don't agree with Crimson that he was changed in the boathouse.
Why not?
Because he's still, to me, that's him still fighting it. I had him reverted and totally fine when he's on the boat, when they're out in the middle of the lake.
And he exhales?
Yes. The whole blood reversing, I think, to me, that was just all showing him just fighting it off, but still having claim over him.
And his eyes have been a very clear indicator of when George is George and when he's under this whatever influence. His eyes were 100% clear right there, right after the whole reverse blood stuff and the flashing memories. His eyes were clean.
His eyes were also clean when he said, kill me or I'm going to kill you. But that still had hold over him.
Were they clean?
I thought so. Because he's fighting all that and he gets hit and he's in the ground and then he looks up at Kathy and then gets hit again.
when he manages to say "kill me or I'll kill you," at that point they are clear. I think that's an indication that he is fighting back to a degree. So
Yeah. Okay. If they are actually clear there, I guess I'll revert my statement, but I don't. I'd have to look at it again.
all right. So a potential reversion of statement to BD TBD.
Yeah. Or I don't know, Springs. Do you have it up right now or not? I don't know when you do or don't sometimes.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it at that then. Still got more Springs, or was that the last of you?
No, my last thing was the chandelier.
Okay. All right.
I guess the only other thing I would have touched on if there was more, but it was nothing, was the importance of like 315, and then the house number was 412, and then went, oh, it's going to be a movie with a bunch of numbers. Got it, and then nothing.
You did mention there was something important about that, right, Crimson?
315, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was the important bit about it?
315 is when Roni killed the family, obviously. We know that. And in the book, the true story, George every night woke up at 3:15, which we see depicted in this as well. So that's pretty much the relevance. 3:15 is just a connection to the Roni murders and George waking up all the time. The house number is accurate, I think, to the true events, but there's no significance to the house number otherwise that I could find when back searching.
Okay. All right.
All right. I guess any last questions before I say that's it and we move on to ratings?
I don't have any left.
I do not either. So take us away, Crimson.
On to ratings and stuff. Who do I start with first? Let's see. Writers' numbers have fluctuated, so I shall save you for last. We will go Springs.
Sweet. I'll go with my subjective first. This was a very movie to me. This was a movie I'd find like late at night scrolling on cable, and you'd come across, and you miss the first 20 minutes, and then you watch the movie and go, okay. I have it at a 5.5. It's very middle of the road. Maybe I'm desensitized to a lot of things. It was beginning to end, had a story, but it was just objectively, I have this at a 6.5. I think the acting's pretty fine. I think the camera work's okay. The transition work, if it's the chandelier, I think is really poor. There's like nothing. The dialogue's fine. The pacing of the movie, not great. The editing, not great. The lighting, questionable. There's things that are fine about it. It's got good things, but nothing in this movie bored me. Nothing in this movie made me hate it. It's safely done. Not much on it. It's just fine.
All right, and that's fine. All right, I shall go next. I will go with my subjective first as well. I have this at a subjective 6. I agree with Springs' assessment. It's fine. I also agree that it's just a movie you would probably see randomly on cable. You wouldn't like actively seek out to watch this movie, probably. At least I wouldn't. So 6, safe movie. I do enjoy Ryan Reynolds' performance in this. As I said, I think it's his best or one of for sure for me. And I'm not a big fan of scary movies, so this one is okay because it's not that scary. Objective. I was kind of bouncing between two numbers, and I haven't decided yet. So by the time I list all my things, hopefully I'll pin one down. I think the acting's all good. I think Ryan Reynolds did great. I think he's beyond good. I think the visual effects are good for the time, excluding Jodie's like freak out at the end when she's screaming and then getting sucked into the floor. I think that's the worst visuals in this movie. I think the set design is good because when I was doing research, this was all made in a stage. The interior, the exterior, they built a new house for the exterior shots.
I imagine they did not film on location for reasons.
They did not. So I think that's all good. The pacing of the film has come into question on, like, does it have a build-up for payoffs? Is it just high octane from the beginning, continued with like no breathing room? And it doesn't have much breathing room, admittedly. Jodie's reveal, is it too early? I think what we have, it is too early. If they wrote Jodie as a character and gave her motivation of like scaring them out of the house, I think that would fix that part, and her in the ceiling and the closet. But they didn't write her well enough to give that as a definitive answer, so I'm not going to give it to them. So the plot of the story is fine. The addition of the Reverend is kind of shoehorned towards the end, but there is enough sprinkles to be like, okay, they're trying to lean towards that direction, so that's not horrible. I think George's escalation is good. Really nice guy at the beginning, and a nice slow-ish progression going to bonkers killer mode. The depiction of time passing, I don't like. We get the arbitrary 15 days there, but it doesn't really indicate anything. So I would rather just remove the 15-day thing because it's not like a benchmark and this is where things kick off. It's there. So remove it or add more than just day 1, 15, and then 28 because it's not great. Jodie as a character is not a character. We don't get any conclusion to her that makes any sense. If she's taken by the Reverend, why wasn't she taken within the year? The hands already grabbed her in the ceiling earlier in the movie, so why didn't they just whisk her away like at the end? Where's the family? What? Jodie's a mess. It's not good. I feel like I'm rambling at this point. But I was between a 6.5 and a 7. And I think I'm at a 7 now. Subject to change. All right. We'll go to writer.
All right. I'll follow the pattern here. Subjective. I think this movie is, to quote everybody else before me, was fine. I didn't hate the movie. I didn't particularly love it either, but I can definitely see myself watching this again under different circumstances. So to match Crimson's number, I'm at a 6. Now, I have been upfront with my objective having changed. I had an initial number when I first finished the film, and that was a 7. And I think my biggest reasons to kind of change why it dropped down a full 1.5 was because I think how much character weighs on my scale. I didn't. Granted, my issue with the characters not having solid payoffs did play a part in it. I think my realization of that. I think that's where I guess I diverged, I guess, from where you guys stand on that. I kind of agree it's not required, but I still felt like that they did set all this up and I never got resolution with it. I do think that's an objective issue to a degree. What weighs a little more heavily on the 1.5 difference, though, is Jodie as a character. I didn't realize completely how inconsistent she was. I knew she was bad, but I think talking about it through the podcast kind of helped solidify it. So I'm at a 5.5 objectively with the film. I think the plot and pacing, I think the pacing issues are problematic with regards to the plot. I think otherwise my issues with the plot kind of bleed a little bit into the character where some of Jodie's scenes should be placed and the world building is just questionable all the way through. But I don't necessarily have large gaping wounds with that, so I'm a solidly 5.5 in the middle, objectively.
Okie dokie. I guess that is this. Anything else before Ryder closes us out?
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween, happy Spooktober.
Adds to the season.
To all of you ghosts
It
and
does add to the
ghouls and
season.
vampires out there.
Crimson, you did ask me, I think, prior to the pod, was this what I expected? And I said no.
I did ask that.
I
Yeah.
expected it to be better.
Well, yeah, someone close to you talked about this movie as well, right?
Think so. And they said it wasn't great. Actually, the person you're talking about is the person I borrowed the movie from, and they said I can keep it.
Oh.
Well, I guess we know where that stands.
Wonder why they had it. All right.
With that, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Thank you, audience, for listening, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Castbox, GoodPods, iHeartRadio, Pocket Casts, and Samsung. And if you happen to be on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble, thank you for watching and listening there. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe everywhere. Tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. As always, I have been a Geeky Writer.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.